having me, Jason. It's great to be here. And it's kind of interesting because if, a lot of people assume, because I've been very successful now for over 30 years in real estate, a lot of people assume that, I started off, uh, you know, always wanting to be a real estate investor, always having that as my dream, and nothing could be further from the truth. If we go back to when I was in grade 12, I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had no idea what I wanted to do the following year. And my parents had always told me that I should be a doctor, lawyer, doctor, lawyer. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm terrified of blood. So doctor was not potential. So out of default, I decided I was going to go and become a lawyer. And I remember uh, went to uh, went to university for 4 years, got my first degree. And by the time I got that first degree, I had a whole bunch of student loans and decided, you know what, before I go back and get my second degree, I need to get these things paid off. It's ridiculous. And so got a job. Actually, a good buddy of mine, his mother was a manager at the phone company, which back in those days, it was government run, it was union. And thought, okay, I'm going to stay here for a couple of years, pay off my student loans, and I'm going to go back and get my law degree. And while I was working at the phone company, I decided to buy my first property. It was my principal residence. Shortly after I did that, my mortgage broker calls me up and says, hey, Mike, you know what? You're making good money. Your credit's good. If you want to get a second property, I can help you do that. And I remember thinking to myself, well, why do I want a second property? Like, what am I going to do with a second property? And he says, well, you buy this home, you put tenants in there, they pay your mortgage for you, everything above your expenses you get to keep. You'll get a little bit of passive income, but more importantly, 25 years down the road, you'll have this property paid off, and that's your retirement. And I remember thinking, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. So bought my first rental property. Back in those days, had no idea anything about due diligence or what sort of research to do. So I remember my strategy was to buy something. My only due diligence was to buy a home that looked nice, that was close to where I lived, so that I wouldn't have to go too far out of my way to collect rent. And so that was how I got into I bought my first rental property. As luck would have it, a couple of years after I bought my principal residence and this revenue property, the market just took off. And all of a sudden, I remember looking and seeing I had all this equity in my properties. And I remember thinking to myself, I've worked in the last 2 years, I've made this much at the phone company, and I made this much in real estate, and I don't even know what I'm doing in real estate. I was just totally by fluke. And so promptly sold my, my revenue property and quit my job at the phone company, told my parents I wasn't going to be a lawyer. And I remember my parents telling me, Mike, you should go get your degree, get your next degree. You need something to fall back on. And, having success at an early age, I was in my mid 20s back then. Having success at an early age was kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, I had this money all of a sudden to play with and to reinvest with. But on the other side of the equation, I didn't really have any knowledge of real estate. I didn't really know what I was doing. And on the next deal, oh, by the way, I quit my job at the phone company, told my parents, no, I don't need anything to fall back on. And so I was kind of becoming a know-it-all. And I remember just thinking, hey, I know how to, I bet I can do this again and again and again. I thought I figured out how to win the lottery. And of course, when you get really lucky on a deal and there's no skill, there's nothing that I did that made the deal a success. I just happened to have really good timing. When you make your money that way, the biggest problem is you can't duplicate it. And like I said, I kind of burnt some bridges because I had, quit the job and couldn't go back there. And I also told my parents that I'm not going to go to law school. And that was the first time in my life where I actually had something that I was passionate about, where I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And so anyway, managed to, on my next deal, take that money that I had earned and lose almost all of it because I didn't know what I was doing. And you have to remember, when I bought that first property, the goal of that first property was, it was long-term. That was going to be my retirement. I was going to hold that forever. And then once I quit the job, I realized, well, like I can't wait for my next paycheck. I can't wait 2 or 3 years like the first one. I need to get paychecks like I need a paycheck every 30, 60, 90 days, or how do I stay afloat? So anyway, I had a very humbling experience, managed to lose a lot of my money on the next deal, didn't have it inspected. A lot of things went way over budget over time. And I had a very humbling experience, which was good because I really needed that, because I went from being a know-it-all to now what I teach my students is to become a learn-it-all. And I had no choice but to go and figure this out because one, like I said, I quit the job, couldn't go back there. And two, I didn't want to tell my parents they were right, that, yeah, maybe I should have something to fall back on. Maybe I should go get that other degree. And so I wanted to show them that I can figure this out and be successful at it. So anyway, we fast forward after I had that big, massive failure, after having that big success with that nice big paycheck, decided that I needed to find somebody who had already paved the path before me. And so I found another investor who was very successful at flips and basically just said, listen, I've got enough money to do one more deal. If you're willing to joint venture with me, I'm willing to put up most of the money if you're willing to teach me as we go. And had I not done that, I wouldn't be here right now talking about real estate investing. I would have maybe been on a podcast talking about law, because I probably would have been living my parents' dream for me. But and no offense if there's any lawyers watching this, there's nothing wrong with being a lawyer. I am just like so not cut out for that because I'm the most passive, non-argumentative guy there is. And so I don't think I would have made a great lawyer. But anyway, so that's kind of how I got started in real estate, totally by mistake. And so a lot of times I get people that come to me and they say, oh, well, I'd love to be an investor. And of course, you're successful at it, Mike, but I don't think I'd be successful at it. And I always like to tell them that story because I didn't even have an interest in real estate investing. I didn't have a passion for it. I had no interest in real estate investing until I got my first paycheck in real estate investing. And then it's like, oh, I like this. I like this a lot better than going to law school. And I like this a lot better than being in the corporate world because, having worked at the phone company, I totally did not fit in the corporate world. I did not belong sitting in a cubicle all day long either. That didn't work for me. So I love to tell people that. I also love to tell people that when I started, I know a lot of people listen to my podcasts and summits and they think, well, Mike, I'd love to do real estate investing, but I've got no money. When I first started, I was aspiring to get to no money. I was negative 25,000 in debt with student loans, which these days doesn't sound like that much, but back in 1989, that was a pretty good chunk of change. So even if you don't have a lot of money, if your credit sucks, if you've never even thought about investing, and I know if you guys are tuned in here on a Sunday, I want to commend you first. So you're here tuned in on a Sunday, taking time. You could be, watching Netflix like everybody else is, but instead you're taking the time to educate yourself and learn and get some new strategies. So I want to applaud you first of all for doing that and just really commend you, because back, like I said, when I first started, I thought I knew everything. I didn't need to learn from anybody else. I had it dialed in and figured out. So I want to commend you for being lifelong learners. And right now, by the way, is the best time in history. Probably what's coming down the pipeline is going to be the best time in history to be a real estate investor. And so today I really want to talk about what are the opportunities that are being created by COVID. How do you take advantage of it in an ethical way? When I say take advantage, a lot of people think, oh, there's going to be a whole lot of people down on their luck and losing their jobs. And I don't mean it in any way where you're going to go take advantage of somebody while they're down and kick them while they're down. I'm talking about creating win-win situations, helping people that are in trouble, giving them a hand up, and getting paid to do it. I'm not talking about doing this for charity. I'm talking about creating a win-win where the person on the other end of the deal wins and you get a paycheck, so you win. And that's a very sustainable business model. Whenever you do something that's a win-win, you can keep doing that forever. So I want to talk about what's coming down the pipeline. What are the best strategies right now? What not to do right now in real estate, because not every real estate strategy is going to work. Not every real estate strategy makes sense right now. And how you can take advantage of this in an ethical way, even if you have no money, even if your credit is horrible. I'm going to teach you some different things that you can do to get in the game right now. So, since COVID started, normally, for those of you who don't know me, I'm normally a nomad. I travel pretty much full time. And that, of course, a monkey, we put a monkey wrench in that when COVID started. And so as I kind of hunkered down and was unable to travel, I've really taken this time to create a lot of marketing material, not marketing, but a lot of just a lot of content really to help people, and especially investors. When I heard that they were shutting down the global economy, I thought, man, there's going to be so many people struggling, so many people losing jobs, so many entrepreneurs losing their businesses. And it really brought me back to 2006, 2007. I was very heavily invested in Las Vegas. And that market, for those of you who don't know, it dropped from its peak to its lowest point. It dropped around 80%. So imagine you have a home that's worth 200,000 one year, and then the next year it's worth 40,000 bucks. So anyway, while I was working in that market, I ran into obviously a lot of people that were in a distressed situation, that were hurting. Back in those days, I'd started up a company that I called Foreclosure Fixers. And Foreclosure Fixers, my goal was to help people either stay in their home or give them what I call a soft landing. And I'll explain that in a minute. So, how a lot of you have probably seen, the postcards that you get in the mail saying, we buy homes, we buy ugly homes, we pay cash for homes. A lot of you have seen that. And if you do that kind of marketing, you will, if you send enough of them, you will get a response. But instead, I sent out marketing that said, hey, I can help stop the foreclosure. I can help you stay in your home. And a lot of times I'd be sitting across the table from a distressed homeowner who is in pre-foreclosure. Pre-foreclosure means that the bank has already started the foreclosure process. They're getting stuff in the mail, basically saying, we're foreclosing on you. And a lot of these people were under the impression, they didn't realize that there was a legal process. They were under the impression that somebody was going to come into their home in the middle of the night, kick them and their kids out, all their stuff on the front lawn, and that was going to be their fate. And so I would sit across the table from these people and I explain to them, hey, there's a legal process. Nobody's going to kick you out. So first I'd calm them down, but then I'd come up with different options for them. And these options were always win-win. And I found that there were two types of people that would call me on my marketing. The first type is, a lot of times we see bad things happen to good people. And right now, COVID, we're seeing that happening to so many people. Nobody chose for COVID to come along and have their businesses shut down and people losing jobs. Nobody chose that. And so we're seeing a lot of people, and we're going to see even more people that, up to COVID time, they had never been late on a mortgage payment in their life. They would never dream of missing a payment. And these are people that, quite often they lose their job. They don't have the money for their mortgage, obviously. And then, they'll get another job, or they'll start another business, and eventually they'll get back on their feet. But in the meantime, these people don't have the money to pay the arrears that they got behind in their mortgage. A lot of times they can afford the monthly payment. They just can't afford the arrears. And so for people like that, I would quite often loan them the money. If they were behind $20,000, I would loan them $20,000. They would pay me interest, but I'd help them stay in their home. So for those people, I would become a lender in many cases. But then there's a second type of person, and that second type of person is somebody who is chronically bad with money. And even if the economy was good, they would still be struggling to make those payments because they would have a house that was way more expensive than what they could really afford. And when you're kind of living paycheck to paycheck and you're just barely making those payments, all it takes is a small thing to totally throw you off keel. And in the case of something major like COVID, these people are going to be in really massive trouble. And for people like that, I would come up with other solutions. And like I mentioned earlier, I would try to give them a soft landing. Now, normally what would happen if they wouldn't meet somebody like me who is willing to help them, they would end up losing their home. They'd be out on the streets because they couldn't afford another home, and they'd be in really big trouble. What I would do is I would always make sure that these people would have money for a damage deposit. I'd give them several months rent. I'd make sure they had money for food. And guess what? I could have got a better deal on their home if I would have just left them and not cared about where they ended up. However, what I discovered is that if they lost their job, there's a pretty good chance they worked with 10 other people that just lost their job. And so these people would refer their friends to me, and all of a sudden one deal would turn into 10 deals. And so I would obviously get a deal on their home. I wouldn't get the home run, but I'd still get a deal on their home. I'd still make a paycheck, but I'd always make sure that they were had a place to live. Quite often, if I had other properties, I put them in my other homes. Sometimes I put them in a rent to own situation. I'd help them rebuild. And not only would they send their friends to me, but when people are on the way down, well, guess what? Eventually they bounce back. And when they bounce back, now they're buyers. So I'd help them on the way down, and then I'd help them get back on their feet. And then on the way back up, a lot of times I sell them another home. And so once again, being an ethical investor, helping other people, always looking out for the person on the other end of the transaction, I think it'll pay you way, way, way more than getting that one home run, and it'll keep you in the game a lot longer. So that's just one of the strategies. I want to talk about, though, specifically what not to do and what kind of strategies you should be doing coming into, hopefully post-COVID, or I'm assuming COVID may be here to stay for a little while. Things you can be doing right now during COVID as well. So some of the things that I would not do, I definitely would be very careful with most commercial real estate, especially office buildings. Right now, we're seeing a lot of business being conducted on Zoom, just like we are right now. A lot of businesses that never thought their employees could work from home are now realizing that, yes, they can. And so there's a whole lot of businesses that are thinking, well, why are we paying all this money to have this commercial office space downtown when we can just have our people work from home? And so there's being a shift in how people are doing work. And so that's going to have an effect on real estate in several ways. One is, office space in the downtown core of big cities is probably going to be suffering for quite some time. I'm guessing a lot of that office space may eventually get repurposed, turned into maybe apartments, or who knows, I'm not sure. But I don't think we're going to see a big resurgence of people going to offices whenever possible. They will not. We're also seeing people that are moving from the city center. People are leaving the city center, going to the suburbs because they don't have to necessarily go to that office anymore. And they can get a lot more real estate for a lot less money if they go further from the downtown core in most cities. And so that is going to be a trend that we're going to see. And so you want to be prepared for that. You don't want to be buying stuff based on what worked a year ago. You want to be buying stuff based on what the future looks like. And so that's going to be a trend that we're likely to see. We're already starting to see it in quite a few cities. Another major trend, if you want to make money in real estate, follow the jobs. Go where people are moving to. Follow the population. What we're going to see is people not just leaving the downtown core to go to the burbs. We're going to see people leaving expensive cities to go to cheaper cities, and also places where there's jobs being created. So for example, imagine, you find yourself, you wake up in Manhattan and you're paying, $4,000 a month for your 1-bedroom apartment, and you don't have a job. That's not a very sustainable lifestyle for very long for most people. You're going to burn through your money really, really quick. So we're seeing a lot of people now leaving places like New York City. We're seeing a lot of people leaving California, where the taxes are ridiculous and the cost of living is extremely high. And they're going to places where there's jobs, and they're going to places where the cost of living is low. So one of my favorite markets right now is Atlanta, Georgia. That I've been selling turnkey properties in Atlanta now for like 8 years. And we are absolutely booming right now because we're seeing a whole bunch of people wanting to invest there. We're seeing a whole bunch of people moving there because Georgia has, the government's very smart business-wise in that they offer a lot of tax incentives for businesses to move their offices there. And so as a result, in Atlanta, it's head office to things like Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines, Turner Broadcasting, Home Depot. The list goes on and on and on. And so the thing you have to look at, one, there's lots of jobs being created, but two, it's very diverse industries. So we all know that airlines, for example, they're probably going to be struggling for a while. People aren't traveling yet like they used to, and probably won't for a while. And so let's say Delta Airlines lays off a whole bunch of people. Well, guess what? If you own a rental property and your tenants are now not working for Delta anymore, well, guess what? There's a whole bunch of other jobs that, in varying industries. So you have to be careful, because sometimes we see certain cities, they're known for one industry. If we look at Detroit, first thing that comes to mind is automotives. And automotives, one, when you're in the middle of a recession, which I believe we're heading into, not a lot of people are thinking about buying new cars. Number two, the future of automotives doesn't look like it did in the 1950s. The 1950s, Detroit was booming. and Chrysler, GM, Ford, they were all thriving. Now the future of vehicles, they're self-driving, they're self-flying. That's coming up in the future. The future of automotives is really things like Uber and things like Apple, and it's becoming a tech play, not what it used to be. And so if you're not prepared for what's coming down the pipeline, you're going to be invested in the wrong places. So you want to go to places, you want to be in the path of progress, you want to be where people are moving to, you want to be where the jobs are being created, where the population is going up, not down. And so those are some of the things you want to look at. Another thing that I wouldn't really be a big fan of doing right now is buying a principal residence. There's a big shortage of homes on the market right now. A lot of people don't want to list their home. They don't want people walking through their property during these COVID times. And we have a whole bunch of people that are thinking, oh, well, you know what? We're going to be spending more time at home. So we want to get a nicer house. Well, these people are fighting over a shortage of properties, and they're driving the prices up. This is very likely to change. Right now, there's a moratorium on foreclosures. So that means the banks are not able, and I'm glad. I mean, I hate to see the banks kicking people out on the streets during a pandemic. That'd be horrible, but that's not going to last forever. Eventually, the banks are going to go back to foreclosing on people, and there's going to be a glut of properties likely coming on the market, probably 6, 9, 12 months down the road. And so if I was looking at a principal residence, I probably would instead go rent for a little while, let the market do its thing, and take that money. If I just sold my home and I have this big chunk of cash, I'd be buying rental properties, because the next trend that we're going to see, and we saw this a lot in 2007, is people going from home ownership to renting, not by choice, but because they have to. And so people with rental properties in the right markets, once again, you want to go to those markets that are inexpensive and where there's jobs. If you have rental properties in those markets, you're probably going to see rent going up. You're going to see house prices going up, and now's a great time to get into that. So I would rather have my money working for me in that and go pay rent myself, have my rent paid for by my properties that I own, and wait it out, because there's going to be much better deals coming down the pipeline, most likely. So these are some of the things, some of the trends that we're going to see. Another trend we may or may not see is, as the social distancing becomes more and more of a thing, and if COVID keeps going on, or if there's another wave, people may not want to be as close to their neighbors as they used to be. And we may see people leaving, apartments and going to single family homes, having more distance between them and their neighbors. So these are trends that you want to watch for. You always want to keep an eye to see what is going on. What are the trends? What's going on in the economy? What's going on in the markets? How are people feeling these days? What is their, are they feeling scared to be close to other people? Well, if that happens, people are going to change their style of living arrangements. So here's some of the stuff. So I've talked a little bit about some of the things I wouldn't do, some of the stuff that I definitely would be focusing on right now. And by the way, I told you earlier, I'm going to talk a lot about things that don't require a lot of cash to get started, sometimes pretty much zero. One of the things I would be doing, if you're new to real estate investing, I'd be looking at wholesaling. Now, what wholesaling is, if you don't have a lot of money, is you find a good deal, and there's going to be a lot of them coming down the pipeline. I'm going to teach you in a minute one of the ways that I use to find these distressed homeowners. You're going to look for a good deal. Now, because you don't have the money to buy that property, you're going to put it under contract, and you're going to put what's called an escape clause in there. Now, what an escape clause is, you're going to put something in the contract that says conditional upon or subject to approval by my partner. And your partner is going to be the person that you're going to sell that deal to. So let me go back in a little bit more detail here. So imagine, I'm just going to give you just really easy numbers. Imagine you found a property worth $200,000, and the owner is in really big trouble, and you can get it for $100,000. You're going to write a contract on it for the $100,000. You're going to put a clause in there that protects you, so that if you can't find somebody that you're going to sell that contract to or sign that contract to, you can escape from that contract and not be obligated to purchase it. And then your goal is to find somebody like me. You're going to try to find a buyer who says, hey, you're going to imagine you called me up and said, hey, Mike, I've got this great deal. I can get it for $100,000. It's worth $200,000. If you're willing to pay me $20,000, I'm just making up round numbers. If you're willing to pay me $20,000, I'm willing to assign this contract to you. And, of course, I would never say, if somebody came to me with a deal that could make me $100,000, and I had to pay $20,000 to make $100,000, I do that all day long. And so now you're going to assign that contract to me. And what that means is I'm going to pay you the $20,000. You're going to transfer that contract to me, and I'm now going to buy that house, not you. So you just did a deal with no money. You can literally, in some places, you have to put $1 down to make the contract legal. Money has to change hands in some places. So you might be into it for $1, and but that's it. You don't need to put a huge deposit. You don't need to, you're not actually buying the property. You're finding another buyer to fulfill that contract. And so, there's going to be a ton of deals coming down the pipeline. And one of the ways you can find these deals, there's another strategy that I really love, and it's called tax deeds. What a tax deed is, when somebody hasn't paid their property taxes in a number of years, eventually the county is going to put their home up on the auction block because they need that money for their schools and hospitals and police force. And they put these homes up on the auction block, and investors like you and I can get properties for pennies on the dollar. And one of my students, I actually do a training. My favorite auction takes place in Houston, Texas. And one of my students picked up a single family home for $7,200. And the property is worth probably $100,000. You got it for $7,200. So you don't need a ton of cash. But in any case, these auctions normally take place on the first Tuesday of every month. Because there's been a moratorium on foreclosures, the auction, and because you can't have that many people in one room to hold the auctions, it's been shut down now, I think, for like 7 months now. And when these auctions start up again, there's going to be a big surplus of properties that are going to be auctioned off. So every month, though, 3 weeks to 4 weeks before the auction takes place, they publish a list of all these homes that are going to go up for auction. And most people who partake in these auctions, they look at the list, they do their research, they go to the auction, try to purchase a property. And that's awesome. You can get smoking deals that way. But an even better strategy is you take that list, you contact the homeowner, use, like I said, use marketing like what I used to use for foreclosure fixers, send out something saying, hey, I can help stop the foreclosure, and negotiate with these people before it even goes to the auction. That gives you a competitive edge. So if you can get a hold of these people, one, if you have the money, you might be able to buy the property and do a flip on it. Two, if you don't have the money, you can wholesale it. You can put it under contract. If you need a buyer, I'm your first buyer. Find a good deal, send it to me. If it's a great deal, I'd be happy to pay you for that great deal. So you can wholesale it. But this gives you a competitive edge because, obviously, a lot of these homes are going to make it to auction. There's going to be a bunch of people competing over them. But if you can get to these properties beforehand, there's a lot of money to be made, getting to these homeowners before they lose their home. And it creates a bigger win because you're helping these people to not lose their home, or at least give them what I call, like what I told you about earlier, give them a soft landing. So there's something that I call the real estate trifecta. And so we take that list, we go and try to track down those owners before the auction, so we can actually make money before the auction ever takes place. If we, any of the homes that we can't get a hold of those people, then we go to the auction. That's our second, way to monetize that list. And, but then there's a third way. So now we know how to do it before the auction, during the auction, but a lot of people don't know that you can actually make money after the auction's over. Now there's a strategy called overages. And what that means, if we go to the auction and let's say the opening bid on a home is $5,000. The opening bid, by the way, is the amount of the arrears. Whatever the arrears are plus whatever legal fees, that's what the opening bid is going to be. And so imagine that the opening bid is $5,000 and the home sells for $50,000 at the auction. Well, one of the strategies that you can do that a lot of people don't know about, a lot of people have never heard of this strategy. The first $5,000, that belongs to the county fair and square. That's the back taxes. The additional $45,000, that money actually belongs to the previous homeowner. And most of these previous homeowners have not a clue that they've got money coming to them. And the county makes very little attempt to track them down because the county would rather keep this money. There's a statute of limitations. Once that statute of limitations runs out, the county gets to keep that money forever. And to me, it's really, really sad that if you go to 7-Eleven and steal a candy bar, they'll turn you into the police. They're going to take you downtown, book you, the government steals $45,000 or sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars from, taxpayers, no problem. There's no problem with that. And so the thing I love about this strategy, it's a great win-win. Your job is to go track down these previous homeowners, let them know, hey, I know somebody who owes you, $45,000. If you're willing to split that with me, and you get to negotiate, you can charge them 10%, 20%, 30, 40, 50, whatever. In some places there's a limit, other places there's no limit. But you can go track down this money for them. And if they agree to it, they're going to get money that they had no idea was owed to them. And put yourself in their shoes. They just lost their home to the auction over $5,000, in that example, over $5,000 in back taxes. So they are broke. And imagine all of a sudden you approach them and say, listen, I know somebody owes you $45,000. Even if you took 40% of that, that is still a pretty significant amount of money for somebody who's probably going to be homeless or having to live, move in with a relative. So once again, you can make money before, during, after the auction. That overage strategy, by the way, requires very little cash. You're not actually buying a home. You're just actually reuniting people with their money. And so in some places you might have to pay for a list. You might have to pay like $50 or $100, but it requires very little cash to get into that. And you can turn that into a business all day long. And best of all, like I said, you could do all three of those things. You could take that list, send out some material saying, hey, I can help stop the foreclosure, come up with solutions that are a win for the homeowner that also are a win for you. Then you can go to the auction, bid there. If you don't have the money, go get somebody else who has some cash. Say, listen, there's properties going at this auction for $7,000 that are worth $100,000. Do you want to invest with me? So make money before the auction, make money at the auction, and then make money, with these overages, or they're also called excess funds. You can make money with all three of those. So those are some of the things that I would be really, if I was new in this game, or even if I'm not new, these are some of the strategies that are going to work really, really well. Like I said, the auctions have been closed for a while. There's going to be, thousands of properties that would have been auctioned off over these last, 6 months. And I'm just talking about one auction right now. There's auctions all over the country that take place. Some of them are back open again, but many of them are not. But there's a big backlog, and there's going to be a massive amount of inventory as more and more people get into trouble, as the banks start to foreclose again, as the counties start to foreclose again on the tax deeds. And there's just going to be so much opportunity. I want to take a break to make sure I want to answer any questions. Does anybody have any questions on anything I've covered so far? I just want to make sure I'm giving it like information from a fire hose here. And so I just want to make sure that I'm not leaving anybody behind. All right, well, no questions, and we will move forward. So another strategy also that's going to work really, really well going forward is something called subject to. What that means, this is for people that you may not have good credit. And this is also a great way to buy your own principal residence if you don't have good credit. It's a way to escape from renting. So subject to deal means that you're buying a property subject to the existing financing. And what that means is you're going to take over somebody's existing mortgage, and basically you don't have to qualify to take over that mortgage. The mortgage won't get transferred to your name. It's going to stay in the previous owner's name, but the title to the property will switch to your name. And so it's a really great way. Imagine, for example, it's a great strategy for homes that have very little equity in them. So imagine you find a property where in 2007, there were a lot of people that couldn't even afford to pay a realtor to sell their home because they had negative equity. The home was actually worth less than what the mortgage was. But imagine you found a place, and I'm going to use really round numbers again, where the mortgage payment was $1,000 a month. Once again, no equity. So you could take over this property with, zero cash, or maybe a small amount if they're in arrears, just to cover the arrears, and take over that property. And if it can rent for, let's say, $1,500 a month, well, you're gonna have to pay the $1,000 in mortgage payment, and you're gonna have to pay the property taxes and insurance. But if you can collect $1,500 a month, now you can start collecting, building a portfolio of properties, collecting rent, getting passive income and cash flow without having to take any money out of your pocket. So that's another great strategy that will probably work very well in the not too distant future as, like I said, more and more people run into trouble. Make sure though, if you're doing this, do this in places where, once again, the population is growing, where people are moving to, where the jobs are being created, because you don't want to own a bunch of rental properties in a place where people are leaving the city, where places where people don't have work. So you can turn this into something really strategic and easy to monetize. Or if you buy in the wrong market, it could turn into a nightmare where you have a bunch of properties that you're now on the hook for. You don't want that. I'm going to ask Jason, did you have any questions? Because I want to make sure that I give as much value as possible, but I also don't want to overwhelm. But they seem pretty shy, so I'm going to ask you if you have any questions. You always come up with great questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is too is, where do you see? You mentioned a lot about how people are more moving away from the inner cities into the suburbs. So is there a markets where people should be? I know you mentioned Atlanta, Georgia is one of those markets. Are you probably doing in Atlanta, or you also have some other markets on your radar that maybe people should start looking into now, because over the next 6, 9, and 12 months, we might see certain activity, or there may be a gluttony of properties? Because I know, like, some of the moratoriums, like in Massachusetts, it expired like a week ago. The moratorium of foreclosure, Nevada expired on their moratorium as well, even though you have the CDC in place till at least December 31st. So that's in the mix. But what's your prediction on, like, some of these markets that people may want to come out besides, say, in Atlanta, which I know you mentioned? Is there like another 2 or 3 or 4 that people should really keep their eye on over the next 6 to 12 months?
Absolutely. Yeah. The great question. So what we're seeing is, it seems like people, for example, on the West Coast, I personally know probably at least a dozen people that have left California over the last like three or 4 months. And, you want to watch where these people are going, because one, they're leaving in droves, but they're also leaving with lots of money because California is very, very expensive. And so they're going to places like, Phoenix. Phoenix isn't really a cheap market, but it could see some more growth as a result of that. We're seeing a lot of people leaving for Texas. A lot of people want the opposite of what they got. And so in California, a lot of people are leaving because they're sick of the taxes. The state taxes are ridiculous. And so they want the exact opposite. So they're going to Texas where there is no state income tax. So I know quite a few people that have moved, to Dallas and Austin and Houston and San Antonio. They're also going to Las Vegas is always popular with Californians. So you want to kind of see what are the trends, where are people going to? On the East, a lot of people, New York, they always want to go to Florida, and some of them were waiting till it was close to retirement. Well, now they're doing that earlier, and so Florida may benefit. But I think one of the things you have to really keep an eye on is let's say there was another wave of COVID and it was more regional, though it affected one area worse than others. Well, whatever area is shut down the longest and has the biggest job loss, there's going to be some opportunities. But when you get into markets like that, those might be places where if people are leaving, there's an opportunity to go where they're going to and make money, especially if you're buying rental properties. But there's also an opportunity if you can get in and back out quick enough to do flips, because maybe people are leaving, but there's still some people that are sticking around. And so if you can find a really motivated seller who just wants to leave right now, they just want to get out as quick as possible, it's an opportunity to win on that end as well, as long as you get in and out really quickly. Because one of the challenges, and another thing, by the way, that I wouldn't do, that I meant to mention earlier, is I wouldn't do any kind of development project that's going to take a year or 2 years. If you're buying land and you want to build something on it, it's going to take you a year or two. The economy a year from now could look totally different than today. And so if you're doing a flip, don't if you're in a market where people are leaving, don't do a flip that's going to take you 6 months to complete, because you may get stuck. But if you can get a property where maybe it doesn't need very much work, maybe no work, and you can get into that property and literally flip it within a few days, a few weeks, maybe a month or two, then that's an opportunity. But the other opportunity, like I said, for me, the biggest wins are going to be where people are moving to. And so, especially, if you look at where numbers make sense for rental properties right now, they're probably going to make even more sense in the future. And so, Texas is great. Most of in the what we call the Texaplex, those cities I mentioned earlier. Your Austin, Dallas, Houston. If you're to draw a line between those three cities, it roughly makes a triangle. That's where the biggest growth is going to be. I like Kansas City on the Missouri side. On the Kansas side, the landlord-tenant laws aren't very favorable, but on the Missouri side, they are. So that's a great place to be buying rental properties, very affordable, right in the middle of the country. Like, you threw a dart at the map of the United States, is right smack dab in the middle. And so a lot of distribution jobs being created there, a lot of things. There's a lot of advantages to being right in the center. So I'd be looking at that. And once again, very affordable. It's a very affordable city, and it's a market that's I call a sleeper market, because it's great value, but it's going to take, if it weren't for COVID, it would have taken probably a long time for it to see some growth. And I think right now we might see people leaving some nearby, more expensive centers to go to places like that. Atlanta, always with jobs. So that's what I'd be looking for. Where are the jobs? Where's population going to? But also, keep an eye, because things could change really, really quickly if there's another outbreak in certain places. Those places are going to, if they get hit really hard, that could either create opportunities or might make it where you don't want to invest there at all, just depending on what happens. So you always want to be keeping an eye on the trends and what's happening. And, things seem to unfold, minute by minute these days, and things are shifting very, very quickly all the time. So you want to keep an eye on that.
No, that's a good point, because so you're talking about Kansas City in the Minnesota, Florida, Georgia, places that a lot of those places have no state income tax as well, and the people in California, New York, even Massachusetts may find those places very desirable to go down to those places, because you're not getting murdered with all the high taxes you have. And then some of those places also have better amenities and more modern places than some of the East Coast places as well. But you're right. COVID is always the X factor of everything. I mean, so if you're in fix and flip, you may want to have a fix and flip that takes you maybe, like you said, a couple of days, a week, a month or 2 months at most, to get in, get out, and your X strategy, and you have a couple extra strategies in place in case in case for some reason a COVID attack or something happens and you have to hold that property for a little bit. You want to have a backup strategy for that. So in case, you brought up very good points, looking where the trends are, looking where, and speaking of that, what are some resources that people can go look at where they can start studying the trends of where things are going? Hey, you can see maybe like, say, U-Haul, different places where they can see where people are going and coming from, moving to, so they can start honing in on these markets now, because when we get by this COVID thing and have a vaccine, it goes back to being more like the flu, we're going to shift in 6 months or a year from now. So,
yeah, absolutely. And some of the resources, we live in the best time ever to be real estate investors and entrepreneurs, because everything is online, and you can look at the trends in population growth, and just even, just talking to your friends, seeing where they're going, especially, like I said, I just talking to my friends in California. Hey, where are you moving to? Texas, Phoenix, Vegas, Idaho, of all places. People are moving to Idaho. And so, but all this stuff is all available online. And like I said, there's so much information out there these days, but I'd even be calling, I'd be calling up realtors in different places and just saying, hey, how's the market out there? I'm thinking of buying some properties in your market. What's going on? Is it busy? And are you seeing a lot of people coming in from out of state and from other cities? And so we see a lot of that, but like I said, you've got to really be keeping on your toes, because what's true this month might not be true 6 months from now. And this is such a unique and crazy opportunity, but also you really have to keep on your toes, because like I said, one news story can totally make or break a market just like that, based on what's going on. But right now, I'd say, if I had to make any decisions, I'd be going to markets that have low cost of living and jobs, because that works in any market. It doesn't have to be a pandemic. Whenever there's jobs, that people will always migrate to find work and to lower their cost of living. And especially now, people are just getting sick of, especially in California, people are getting really sick of the taxes and the fires, and it's just like one thing after another. So, but see, follow the trends of where those people are going, because they're leaving in droves, and more importantly, they're leaving with money. And so when they go to a place like, if you leave LA and you go to a place like Dallas, for example, where the cost of living is so much cheaper and the cost of a property is so much cheaper, and these people know they're going to keep a lot more of their money away from the tax man, these people are ready to spend, they're ready to invest, they're ready to buy properties. So if you can supply those properties to those people, that's where there's some pretty big bucks. So, and once again, if you don't have money, you could be wholesaling to those people. You don't have to necessarily buy the property and flip to them. You could be wholesaling to them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because they're saving thousands of dollars by not living in California anymore. And I think eventually California is going to have to modify their policies and tax policies to business if they want to keep businesses in that state. It's just a matter of time, because they'll get too much of an exodus, and with that, you won't have the businesses in there to sustain what they need to do. So, I mean, absolutely. But you made some very good points that you have to look at the markets, you have to work at the trends, because right now with COVID, you get one bad news story, an outbreak, things could affect that market in a certain way, or certain businesses shut down, or certain job losses. You got to be prepared to evaluate that. So yeah, I thought that was a great point. So yeah, that's some of the questions I had, Mike.
Yeah, well, does anybody else have any questions? I see my good buddy Paul Finck is in the waiting room too. Anybody have any questions? I want to make sure that we cover as much as possible, but I also want to make it meaningful to the audience. I always want to make sure I answer their questions. I'm also going to give them, I actually wrote an ebook where I go into a lot of details on the best ways to make money right now, even if you don't have a lot of cash to play with. So I'm going to put that in the chat box here. I know for those of you who aren't watching live, if you want a copy of it, just send an email to info@mikewolfmastery.com, info@mikewolfmastery.com, and let me know that you heard about me through Jason Burke, and I will make sure you get a free copy of the ebook. But it goes into a lot of detail as to what is working and not working right now, and what will be working as things unfold.
No, that's awesome, Mike.
All right. Now, also, I'm going to let people know I'm actually doing I keep getting asked, how can I learn from you? And I usually do, trainings live and in person. And quite often I take people to, places like Houston, and I actually show them how do you do these tax deed auctions. Because if you go to the auction and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get smoked on. You're going to lose your money. It's a great place to get great deals if you know what you're doing, and it's a great way to lose all your money if you don't know what you're doing. So normally I do these live trainings, and obviously we're not doing them because the auction isn't open. So I've decided I'm going to do a 3-day online training. This is actually, I did one a number of months ago, and we charged $1,000 for the 3 days, and got tons of great feedback. But I've decided that, there's so many people right now that are, struggling, and they've lost their jobs. They don't know how, they don't know what they're going to do next. And so I wanted to make this as affordable as possible. So we're actually doing another event November 20th, 21st, 22nd. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's on Zoom, and it's only going to be $97. So it's affordable for everybody. I'm going to put a link for that as well. Once again, if you're not watching live, just email me info@MikeWolf. It actually says Mike Wolf. It's actually Wolf, WOLF, Mike Wolf Mastery, info@mikewolfmastery.com. And I'll get you in on the, whoops, that's the ebook. Oh, now I've got the summit and the ebook on there. So if you want to sign up, like I said, it's $97. We're going to spend 3 days deep diving all these strategies I'm teaching you, such as wholesaling. I'm going to teach you exactly how you do it. How do you find the leads? How do you find the buyers? How do you put it under contract? But we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different strategies. Oh, David has a question here. How do you raise money to get started not using traditional means? So 2 different questions. So we'll start with the first one. How do you raise money to get started not using traditional means? One of the ways is you can do something called owner financing. So quite often, if you have a motivated seller, you can sometimes get them to be the bank for you. And there's a lot of advantages to the seller. Imagine somebody's owned an apartment building for a long, long time. If they dispose of that building, if they sell that to you, they're going to have a really big tax bill, on that if they're, exiting real estate. And so if they instead finance you, now they're not going to pay, they're going to reduce their taxes on it. They take that money in installments instead of a lump sum. So it's a great win for them, a great win for you. Also, whenever you're looking to raise money, you need to be bringing something to the table. So if you're educated, if you know how to do a strategy that other people don't, let's use tax deeds. Most people don't have a clue how to go to the tax deed auction safely and successfully. So imagine you learn how to do that. And then you go to a meetup with a bunch of real estate investors and you say, hey, I specialize, people, the first thing people ask you, oh, what type of real estate are you doing? What kind of investing are you doing? And if you say, hey, I specialize in Texas tax deeds, most people won't have a clue what a Texas tax deed is. And so you can explain to them, hey, you know what, here's, every month there's an auction. We see homes changing hands for like pennies on the dollar. And, these people won't have a clue how to do it. And so the next thing you're going to say, hey, if you want, the only thing stopping me from doing more deals is I could use some more capital. And so quite often you can get other people interested. They'd rather invest with you because they can't circumvent you. They don't know how to do that strategy. So they'd rather invest with you and get 50% of something than 100% of nothing. And so really what you need to do is be bringing something to the table. Either you have to know how to do something other people don't. You have to be willing to put in the time. So for people that just want to put in the money but don't have the time, you have to bring some sort of resource to the table. And then in return, they're going to put up the cash. So I'm going to go into a lot of detail actually on that 3-day event and some other ways to raise money. But those are some good starting points. The other starting point is, on the people in your immediate circle, the people, your friends, your family. If you tell them, hey, I want to get into real estate investing, some of them might be leery at first. But others might be interested, especially if you come to them with an opportunity of some sort. If you just go and you're very vague, I want to be a real estate investor, they're probably going to say no to you. But if you had a specific strategy, with my students, I tell them that I give my students my teams. So I actually have teams on the ground in Houston, Texas, who do these tax deeds. And so you could actually legitimately, I tell my students that they can legitimately go tell somebody else that, hey, here's some deals that my team has done. You're not going to say you've done the deal if you haven't done it. You're not going to lie, but you can legitimately say, here's some deals that my team has done. And then you can show case studies like, hey, here's one home that my team got for $7,200 and they flipped it for 90 grand. Here's another one we got for 10 grand, flipped it for 80. So you can use these case studies to attract investors without lying. You never want to lie. Second part of your question, are 1031 exchanges a good way to trade real estate? 1031 exchanges, by the way, disclaimer, I'm not an accountant or lawyer or anything like that, but 1031 exchanges, you guys are so lucky in the United States. I'm Canadian, by the way, but I do all my investing in the US, because in most other countries, including Canada, we don't have anything like the 1031 exchange. So for those of you who don't know, the 1031 exchange is basically something that says that if you sell real estate, and you take the proceeds and reinvest in more real estate, that you're going to defer the capital gains tax. In most countries, if I were to buy a property and sell it, and then I made a profit, I've got to pay tax on that profit. Whatever I have left over is what I can invest with. In the United States, if you use a 1031 exchange, you could buy a property, sell it, and then reinvest that capital to buy another property and never pay a dime of tax until you decide to get out of real estate, which you should never do. So yes, 1031 exchanges are amazing for most people, but consult with your lawyer or accountant on your individual case. But in general, yes, I love 1031 exchanges. BRRRR strategy works in traditional markets, but what about the COVID affected markets? So for those of you who don't know, BRRRR is buy, rehab, rent, and you missed a couple of R's, refinance, and repeat. So it's buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. BRRRR strategy is great in any area, assuming that you can do it. Basically what you're doing is you're buying a property, you're fixing it up, and if you get a really good deal, let's use that example of my student who got the home for $7,200. And let's say the home is worth $100,000. A lot of times when you go to get a refinance, you can get up to 70 to 80% of the value of the property. Now there's certain things, usually there's a waiting period. You can't do it the day after you buy it. There's a seasoning period. But in general, let's say you bought a property for $7,200 and after you fixed it and put your tenant in place, then you go to the bank and pull 70 grand out of something you paid $7 grand for. Yeah, you've got way more money to play with. and you can use that money to invest in more properties. So yes, and actually I talk about the burst strategy on my 3-day event as well in a lot more detail. But yeah, in general, burst strategy, I do that in any market as long as there's a bank willing to refinance you, and as long as you're doing it strategically. When you're borrowing against your existing properties, you don't want to go crazy and over leverage all your stuff. You want to make sure that it still cash flows if you're holding it, but it's a great way to get money. And if we use that example again, you paid $7,200 for it, you pull 70,000 out of it, and more importantly, that 70,000 that you just pulled out of it, tax free. That's not a taxable event. You're borrowing money from the bank, and so you have a whole lot more money to play with. And that's how a lot of people get very, very wealthy in real estate, is they use their existing real estate to help them buy a lot more real estate. Great questions, by the way, David. I can tell that you are not brand new to this, but yeah, great questions. Anybody else before they kick me out of here? Any other questions that I can answer for you? So I'm going to put my email. If you guys have any questions at all on anything to do with real estate, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Mike, there is another question there from in the chat. It's let me look. Is it looking to buy a 1234 acre woodland farm, but need help to finance with private lending?
Yeah. So let's see, where is that question? Oh, there it is. Okay. I don't know why I didn't see that before. Okay, looking to buy a 12 woodland farm, but need help to finance with private lending. Yeah, well, if you can't get it done, you need to make it attractive to another investor. You have to let them know what's in it for them. And so you want to show, hey, well, what's your exit strategy with this? Or is the farm going to generate revenue? You've got to basically show them, one, why you want to buy it, two, how you're going to monetize it, and three, what's in it for them. How much of that, if it makes X amount per year, how much of that are you willing to give to them? But if the deal makes sense, it really, it's just a matter of getting enough eyeballs on it. And there's different ways to raise money, as I mentioned. A lot of people, for example, have money sitting in their retirement funds doing nothing, and they don't know that they can make it self-directed and loan it to you, and you could probably give them a much better, safer return than what they're getting, through traditional products that are out there. So it's just a matter of one, figuring out what's in it for the investor to make it attractive to them, and really, and then just really getting enough eyeballs on it, enough people that might be interested. So I would be going to, investor meetup groups. And right now, there's not a lot, most places, not a lot of live ones happening, but they're still meeting on Zoom. There's a lot of investors getting together, having meetings over the internet. And it's just a matter of sharing that. Also, running it past other people in the industry that might be interested. But you always want you want to talk about why you're buying it, what's in it for you, and then even more importantly, what's in it for that person with who you want to invest with you. What are you giving them? What are they? What are you bringing to the table for them? And if it's compelling enough, then you'll find private money. I'd also, first thing I would do before I even do that, though, I would talk to the owner of the farm and see if they need all that cash up front. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just need a little bit of a down payment right now, and they'll be the bank, or maybe they don't need any. Who knows? Find out why they're selling, and if they'd have the potential to be the bank for you. And also, if they're selling it, you want to educate them on the fact that hey, you're probably going to be paying a lot of tax. If you bought it for this and you're selling it for this, you're going to pay a lot of tax. I have a good solution that's a win for you, and a win for me. Why don't we sit down and talk about seller financing? So there's a number of different ways to play with that. But it's all going to come down to what you're planning on doing with it, how it makes money, and how you're dividing that money with whoever you're going to do the deal with. Any other questions?
No, I think that's it, Mike. I mean, you did an awesome job. You want to definitely reach out to Mike. You want to attend his 3-day boot camp come up here November 21st, 22nd, 23rd, right?
You bet. 20th of November. So hope to see you all there. And thanks so much for having me, Jason. It's always great to see you. And thanks so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to have you, Mike. Have a great day. And we, like I said, reach out to Mike. Definitely want to attend this 3-day boot camp. Come out. Mike's a world of knowledge and information. So thank you again for coming on and sharing your knowledge at the High Performance Summit.
Thanks again, and have a great rest of the day.
You too. I want to welcome our next speaker, Maverick Millionaire Paul Finck. Paul's going to be talking about negotiations of riches and how to save thousands of dollars. Paul's a personal development authority. He's one of the top business coaches out there. He teaches people how to expand and grow their businesses. So I welcome Paul Finck.
Hey, how you doing, Jason?
Good. How you doing, Paul?
Doing awesome. And we're about to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is negotiations. One of the key reasons why people and how people make money in real estate. And definitely, we just had some great training about getting into real estate and all the different strategies that are out there. This is the rest of the story, because when you know how to negotiate, no matter what strategy you choose, you can really magnify your profits every step of the way because of knowing the skill sets and the strategies I'm going to teach you right now. So I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint here, and we've got some great people here. I'm probably going to go through this fairly quickly and then go to Q&A. Some of the best ways to kind of go through this, however, go ahead and punch in your questions along the way. I know what I've covered, so I'll be able to go back if necessary and review for you all the different nuances of the answers. So along the way, even if I don't touch on them, go ahead and type in your questions into the chat. Sometimes going back and forth with the chat room and what's going on causes some technical challenges among everything else. So I'm going to let that fly. Absolutely go ahead and type into the chat as we go along so that we can take care of your questions at the end. Going to be talking about negotiation riches, and this is really key because you can create thousands, if not tens of thousands, and I'm going to go through some examples now on each and every one of your deals. Did you know you negotiate all day long? Did you know that this is absolutely the key thing that you're doing on a regular basis? Oh my gosh, and does that scare the crap out of you? I get it. All too often people shun from negotiations. They get scared from it. And there's a few reasons why. It's because the process is unpredictable. The outcome is unknown, and that unknowledge or unknowingness of the future is what scares people the most. Negotiation every day. You negotiate with your spouse, with your kids, with your boss, your auto mechanic, your loved ones. You're in constant negotiation from the smallest things like who's going to do the dishes to repairs. And in real estate, it's what's going to happen with your bottom line, your profitability in your business. Because in business and in real estate, you can really create abundance, or it can cost you abundance when it's done wrong, and it can create abundance when it's done right. One of the things that excited me in real estate investing, when I first got started in real estate, well, I had a track record of sales, marketing, of business understanding. I had been an entrepreneur for over 35 years. And well, I got into real estate and I got excited because in a real estate deal, there are numerous items that you can negotiate, and every single one of them becomes the possibility and the potential for a win. And that's really key. You want to really create a magnitude of results. You want to be winning on each and every one of these components. However, you only win on one or two of them, it's going to give you just amazing results. So really realize that any one of these that you find a way to negotiate will give you those thousands of dollars. So what if you face your fears, built your knowledge up, which we're doing here, increased your power and became a master, well, Maverick negotiator? What would that mean to your bottom line? What would that mean to your profitability in your business? What would that mean to how well you do in real estate investing and how long you are in this industry? How would you like to create thousands more on every single deal? Have I gotten your attention yet? A little bit about who I am. For many of you, you already know, entrepreneur for 35 years, studied psychology in college, trained to be a clinical psychologist, went on and studied neurolinguistic programming, got certified in hypnotherapy, went on and did multi-level marketing as well as real estate. Last 19 years, I've been studying and investing in real estate. So $21 million or $20 million in real estate transactions. I also then became an international speaker, trainer, about 15 years now at this level, speaking in 8 different countries, 3 different continents. I've run over 250 boot camps, some my own, some other people's, and 11-time best-selling author. This is one of my latest. And so with this, over and over and over again, just bringing my message to market and driving it to bestseller, the techniques and strategies. Over $30 million in informational products, and I've trained tens of thousands of people all across the United States, Canada, Europe. My amazing partner in life is Deborah. She's been by my side since the very beginning. 34 years ago, we started dating, and now as passionate as ever. If it wasn't for Deborah, she saw more of me than I did in and of myself, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. This is the rest of the story. 6 kids, 3 sets of twins. They're the reason why I catapulted to success, because I really needed to figure out a way to really take care of my family. That's where it started. And then I began to get a real purpose and a real vision for what was possible. And that's when I got into real estate investing. Now my children are 19, 20, and 24, and the journey continues. However, when we first got started with our family, I had 6 kids under 6 years old looking to figure out a way. Kind of looked like this guy. Too many bills, too little time, stop, stuck, overwhelmed. And I quickly shifted and transformed so that now I have people from all around the country and around the world giving me accolades as to what I've been able to do for them in their life. See, I'm known for, and we're going to be talking about negotiation strategies here, but in general, life and business strategies. How to really design your life on purpose with intent to create a magnitude of results. Whether it's in the real estate game or the rest of your life, that's the name of the game. That's the purpose, is to live up to your fullest potential. Doug McGurk says, you can go from 0 to hero with Paul. And Leslie talks about how I lit a fire under her in really getting her going. She was in Airbnb, kind of had plateaued. Within a day, got 3 new bookings just because of the training and the energy she got from working with us hands-on. And she was part of a training program that we did. And next thing you knew, bam, her life and her business took another step up. Same thing happened with Walter, and the techniques and strategies we trained him brought him from $300,000 in a year to $300,000 in a month. Who here would love that kind of transition in their life? It's what we do and what I do every single day, and helping entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and real estate investors really take another step up in their world. So after doing this for 18, 19 years, I've learned some of the keys behind real estate success. Maverick key number 1 is you don't find deals, you create them. And that's why you want to learn negotiations, because, well, finding the deal will only get you so far and give you so much. And most people that have been around real estate long enough know it's that no matter what, the magnitude of your results, the magnitude of your profits come from creating a deal, really making it happen and massaging it to create those magnitude of payouts, the magnitude of results that you're going to get in profitability. Maverick key number 2 is you can create more and more deals at whim. That's right. In real estate, one of the things I've learned, and I started in real estate during the last downturn, and now everyone's talking about the up, down, and sideways of the real estate market today and what's going to be happening over the next year. And well, I kind of got started in the last downturn, actually right before the last downturn, and then lived through 2008, 2010 craziness. And even during those times, there were deals to be found, because you're not going to find them, you create them. And so there were deals to be had is probably a better statement. And I was able to still find and then create more and more deals every single day because I knew these strategies, I knew the techniques. And then Maverick key number 3 is you can create more profit per deal every single time. The strategies I'm going to share with you and the rest of the story, I've been able to create profit on utilizing those techniques on every single deal I've applied them to. That's really key. You can create more profit just by utilizing these techniques. So pay attention. So all this happens via negotiations. I want to offer you up, and one of the things that I have available to you is the Maverick 50. These are 50 negotiation strategies that I've accumulated, used, created over the last 20 years that I've applied into this world. And truth be told, a lot of these are sales techniques, or they come from my sales background, which is now 35 years in the making. So these are really key strategies that you can apply instantly into your world. Grab hold of me, reach out to me. Let's get you the Maverick 50, which is the full white paper on negotiation techniques. So here's where it started. And I began to recognize that there were certain components in negotiations that were really key, and the power of negotiations when I was really young. And I was listening to, and young meaning in my 20s, and I was right out of college, and I was listening to cassette tapes. Give you some idea. Cassette tapes, and I was listening to them in my car. It was University on Wheels. I was in outside sales. I was in the medical field, and I was listening to these tapes, and they were teaching about some sales techniques and strategies. And well, as will often happen, and even with people that are on this call right now, you're listening here and you're listening to a whole lot of great training and great ideas. And then you write some good notes maybe, and you review your notes, maybe summarize them, and then you do nothing. You don't apply them into your world. You don't actually use the techniques. You say, yeah, those are good techniques. Only, yeah, those are good techniques. And you pause there. I challenge you. I dare you. Go ahead and put them into your world. Test them out. It's what I did. I listened, I learned, and then I did something really crazy. I applied them. And I remember the first time of really consciously making this happen. I was listening to a cassette tape in my car, and they were going through different techniques of closing at that point. And I was about to call on a brand new account, and I said, well, what do I have to lose? You know, I've been listening to these tapes. Let me actually apply it exactly as they said. I just heard it. Let me go in and make it happen. And so I listened, I learned, and I applied. I grabbed hold of the words that they were telling me to say, and I went right into the call, right into the appointment, went through my presentation, and then the call to action was utilizing their specific words. I said exactly what they told me to say, and Then I did the next thing that they also told me to do. And that was to shut up. That's right. Technique number 41 on my Maverick 50 is shut up. Do not spend another word looking to, well, what'll happen is you'll end up talking yourself out of, or at least that's the challenge with many, is that you say something, you actually put it out there. Maybe it's asking for the order. Maybe it's declaring a certain price tag. Maybe it's giving or taking a certain concession. And without letting it sit there, without getting an answer from the other side, you begin to talk again and talk yourself right out of the sale. You'll say something else that'll trigger something that'll cause the buyer or seller in real estate, either side of the fence that you're on, to hesitate, to pause because of that additional pieces of information that you gave to them. Don't do that. So I said the technique, I said that the call to action, and then I shut up. Here's one of the biggest challenges when you learn to shut up, when you learn to pause, when you don't say another word. You say, so how much were you thinking of selling your property for? What would be the price tag that you would accept? What would be the lowest price you would accept for your house? When you state that statement or that question and you pause and you don't say another word, it'll feel like eternity. It'll feel like the world has come to a standstill and everyone's staring at you, waiting for you to say something more, when in reality, you're not supposed to say anything more. You're waiting for them. It'll feel that way. And you've got to last through it, because 30 seconds will feel like the eternity. And then all of a sudden I did this and I shut up and I was in there and it felt like forever. I thought the world had stood still. And then the purchaser said, well, let me see what I can do. And she got up and left the room, and I wasn't sure where she was going. I kind of looked around and went, well, I'll wait a minute. A minute later, she comes back with a long list and says, here's what we'd like to order. Any questions? No. I skedaddled out of there, went to my car, and then did a huge happy dance sitting in my car, because it was the first time I remember consciously applying a technique exactly as they said and getting the results immediately. I, at that point, realized the power that was available to each and every one of us. The power to create our own destiny. To be able to utilize specific words, specific phrases, specific techniques to create specific results that would benefit us and bring abundance into our door. This is really key. And it's what everything else that I'm going to train on, where it comes from, is that understanding that you have control, that you could change the outcome of each and every transaction you ever have by understanding these techniques. So one of the things I offer up, like I said, my Maverick 50 negotiation reference guide. And let's talk about some specifics. See, I got all this the hard way. I spent tons of money, decades, and battled my own self-doubt to create everything I'm going to offer to you. Now you get to have it the easy way. Wouldn't that be much better? To create success that you really want right now. And here's the bottom line. Before I move into everything else I'm going to do, I want to offer this up. This is how you're going to get the Maverick 50. It's also how you're going to get a whole bunch of other gifts that I'm going to give you. It also is how you get the chance to talk to me. One of the things that I'm offering up here, we've got a really exclusive group here with Jason's high performance, and I want to be able to really connect with each and every one of you. So what I'm offering up here is a free consultation where we get to actually get on the phone, actually talk about your deals, talk about how you can move forward and really create a magnitude of results in your life. all you got to do is go to www.hpmaverick.com, and it'll give you an opportunity to get right into my schedule and actually talk to me directly. It'll also give you an opportunity to take advantage of our Maverick Time training series, which is a 5-day training series on time management. And on the phone with me, we'll talk a little bit, and I'll be able to offer you up the Maverick 50 and make that available to you as well. Oh, and by the way, all of this is free of charge. None of this is anything I'm going to charge you for. It is my gift to all of you. Absolutely come forward, take advantage of it. Let's go to technique number 39, trial closes. Now, these are really key. I want you to stop negotiations by driving to the finish line. And this is really key. All too often, people hesitate to present, to ask questions, to actually ask for the order, because they're like, ooh, what if they say no? What if they say that they reject the whole deal? I don't want to even get there yet. Maybe if I just keep talking, they'll just stop me and say they're going to buy, and I'll never have to actually ask for the order. This is the in-between stage where you can actually ask for the order without quite asking. It's called the trial close. It's the if-then. One of the things I did, here's a property that I ended up buying, Franklin Street property, and it looks really nice. And this is how I saw it when I drove by, only I had driven by this property over and over again, and it didn't look this nice all the time. I realized someone had done something to it, and it had a little sign in the window when I saw it that said for sale by owner. I screeched to a halt, ran into the property. The door was able to be opened. I opened the door, heard construction going on inside, and on the kitchen table, just as I walked in the door, was a piece of paper that had a description of the property, a nice picture, and their list price. With that information, I followed the noise, and it led me downstairs, and I walked into the basement, and there were a couple people working there, and I said, hey, is the owner around? And one guy identified himself as the owner, and I followed up with this question. And I said, if I gave you less than what you were asking, however, you could stop whatever you're doing right now, would you be interested? Now, here's what was going on. As I walked in the basement, I realized that the way they were structuring the basement and the way they were dividing it up was not what I would have done. And so I had an eyeball of what I would have done with this property and how I wanted to bring it to market. And I was going to use this as a buy and hold and then a rental property. And the way they were dividing up the basement wasn't going to serve with how I wanted to rent it. So I knew I was going to have to tear apart some of what they were already putting into place anyway, which is where this question came from, is that I just wanted them to stop. I just didn't want to tell them that that was a benefit to me. I was using that as a negotiation ploy that, oh, it'll actually discount the price if they stop. But it was actually going to save me money. That being said, I walked in and I said this, if I give you less than what you're asking, however, you could stop doing what you're doing now, would you be interested? At which point, now the owner's in front of me over here, and over on my far right, one of the gentlemen takes off his utility belt off of his waist, which had all the tools on it, takes it, dumps it on the ground, and says, does that mean I'm done here? Now, all I thought was, yes! Why? Because this was the owner's buddy who had come in and was helping him with construction. This was a rehab, one of the first rehabs this couple had done. They brought in a couple friends to help with the rehab. And now the friend had been done. He wanted to just go home. He didn't want to be working and spending his nights and weekends helping his buddy rehab the house anymore. He was finished, and he let me know that in 30 seconds, just because I said this trial close. Now, mind you, this could have been just the beginning of negotiations. Instead, it was the nail on the coffin. What's the owner going to say? No, we wouldn't be interested. No, we've got some work to do here. We're going to finish up and then we can negotiate price. His friend just gave away his position. So instantly with the trial close, within a minute, 2 minutes being in front of them, we were able to drive right to the conclusion. The rest of the story is by the next morning, I was meeting with the couple signing contracts. This one question ended up me getting this property right away at a lower price, about $30,000 less than what they had it listed for. And then I knew that wasn't even fair market value. I went and within a couple months, refinanced this. Within 2.5 months, refinanced the property without doing any real additional work to it, and pulled out a chunk of money on top of that in just simple cash out refi, which ended up $80,000 profit on this one property, all within a few months. Huge, one question, trial close, instant contract, and netted a really great profit. Learn to use these if-then, and there's a ton of different if-then variations that we can go into. However, learn to use these variations and you'll get a world of benefit. I use a couple other techniques as well, and one of the things I'll talk about is stacking techniques and how that benefits you. Only know that there are multiple techniques to create this. However, this was the key to get me in the deal. Technique 3-option offer. Technique number 50 is a 3-option offer. And 3-option offer is designed and really great for commercial. However, I've also used it in residential properties as well. And here's how it is psychologically, when you place an offer, you say a price, you offer up a product, whatever the case may be, and you say, here's a product, yes or no. Statistically and psychologically, are people going to say yes, or are they going to say no? When you're given a yes-no equation, people without any other details needed will traditionally and statistically say no, because they would much rather stay with the status quo, which is known, than pull in something new and change into the unknown. So given everything equal, they will absolutely choose no over yes. So whenever you have an offer that gives them the option of yes or no, you're already at a disadvantage. Statistically, they will say no more often. Now, you go 2 or 3, as you go to that 3-option offer, the statistical increase of them picking one of the 3 increases exponentially. They now know that you're a little bit more flexible, so that they'll even get into negotiations with you because you have 3 options. They also traditionally will pick the middle one because, well, one seems to be a little too high, one seems to be a little too low, and just like Goldilocks, they'll end up picking the middle option. Well, that seems fair. And so a 3-option offer works on a psychological level in multiple ways and creates, at the very least, you're in negotiations, and at the best case scenario, they pick one and you're in the game instantly. You're already at contract. Here's one of the properties early on that I did this for. This was actually one of my first real estate properties. Yes, I'm a Maverick. I dove right into this. Is a strip mall. And the strip mall was listed at $769,000 is what it was listed for. And which was, for one of my first properties, for many, many people, way over the top. I realized the numbers worked and I got into negotiations. I went into the deal. Saw this at 10:30 in the morning, 12 o'clock in the morning one day, and by 8 o'clock the next morning, I had placed my offer. This was fast action, got me in the game, and I did that so I could start negotiating to change this number to create something that was really going to make a difference. And here's what I did. I did a 3-option offer. And a 3 option offer, basically what you're doing is you're going to adjust via terms and conditions instead of or in combination with price. Because real estate, it's not just about the price, it's about all the combinations of items that you can negotiate on and delivering different combinations to find one that works. First one is usually a high offer, and in this case, total owner financing. So the terms totally in my favor, the price totally in his favor. Option 2, a little bit of both. Option 3, the price totally in my favor and the terms totally in his favor. So that's how I laid it out, and that's how I usually lay it out for the real estate game in that way. This is the proof of the pudding. We did end up closing on this particular deal. Put it under T3 Holdings. Anybody want to take a guess as to why I put it under T3 Holdings LLC? That's right. This was for my children, twins 3. Everything I did, especially at that stage, was all about building for their future and building a legacy for them. And so these were holdings that were meant for them and for their future. T3 Holdings LLC is what I put it under. And if you take a look at the price, $372,350 is what we ended up buying it at. Who remembers what the list price was? A little bit different. Here are the results. It listed at $765 and we purchased it at $372. Major difference. Again, I've become a well-known for my negotiation strategies and systems. And this is kind of proof of the pudding on why people gravitate to me to learn these techniques. Really know a thing or two on how to move the needle. All too often people look at list price as if that is set in stone, and nothing could be further from the truth. Realize you've got some power when you know how to utilize it. Purchase price, $372. I did hold this for about 2.5 years, and it was meant for a long-term hold. Ended up doing a short-term hold on it for a lot of different circumstances. Spent about $2,500 on repairs. It was really basic. You know anything about commercial real estate? All the rentals were net leases, so that I had nothing to do on the inside of the property, only on the outside, which is why the repairs were so low. And cash flowed over $2,000 per month every single month I owned it, which just proves the point that it was well worth the investment. Because then I also sold it for $685,000 2.5 years later. This was a major win, made over $300,000 profit on this deal. And it had everything to do with how I bought it, had everything to do with the negotiation strategies I used, nothing whatsoever to do with finding the deal, because finding it was definitely listed at a high price that wouldn't have netted me this kind of profit. Some of the things that I did, it wasn't just a 3-option offer. I also did a couple things. And this is when I started really understanding stacking of techniques and strategies. For one is I went in with a firm belief. I ended up getting this property both with negotiating it with the owner, as well as even more importantly, getting the financing for it, because I believed wholeheartedly in my future, in my vision, in my own abilities to make this work. You see, this was my first real estate deal, and so I didn't have to just negotiate with the owner. I had to negotiate with the banks to get the funding for this, because as a commercial property, the commercial banks did not want to lend to me. This was my first commercial property. What do we know about your ability to manage this property? We're going to lose our shirt. And I went through and I did a 3-page letter talking to the bank that had already rejected me on why I was the best candidate to borrow from them for this particular property. And that has everything to do with your belief system in what you're doing, your belief in who you are and what your vision is. Knowing why the owner was selling and negotiating from a power position when you know why they're looking to dump the property. And some multiple times during the proceedings, I did a takeaway close, and talk about that another time. When can all this happen for you? How can you make all this happen in your world? Well, you can do that right now because you have no time to lose. Yes, no time to lose. Time is probably your biggest enemy, so you don't want to waste it. Take action now. I already gave you the link. It is hpmaverick.com. Matter of fact, let's make sure that gets in the chat, hpmaverick.com. So technique number, actually the next technique is inspection report discount, or what I like to call dump the monkey. This is one of my favorite of all time techniques, so pay attention closely. Dump the monkey, let them take care of it. Here's the thing, and when I talk about monkey, all too often people have monkeys, which are their challenges in their life, and they take their challenges and what do they do with them? They dump it on somebody else. They say, hey, you take care of this. No matter what it is, even when it's their responsibility, they think they've got the right and they have the ability, when you accept it, to dump their challenges onto you. One of the techniques and strategies that I utilize in real estate over and over again is recognizing when they're looking to dump the monkey and dump it back on them. Here's what I mean. Here was a property I was buying. It was fairly large. This was actually 6 apartments in this building, $875,000 for a 6-apartment complex. And it was negotiated down over $137,000. We negotiated off the price. And here's what's really key. The $875,000 actually wasn't list price. I had that wrong. That was contracted price. Contracted price. We negotiated $137,000 in credits back off of the negotiated price. Technique number 13, we did 3-option offer. We did believe crazy is as crazy does. This was the fun part, and this is kind of where we also did the dump the monkey. Because here's what happened. So we're in negotiations, we contract, and then we go for an inspection. I always go for an inspection, pay for a high-level inspection of my properties. And when it comes back, a high-level inspection will give you an itemized list of all the items that are, well, wrong with the property, for lack of a better word. All the items that need to be fixed to bring the property up to quality. All the items that need to be fixed to bring the property up to quality. Well, if you have all these items that need to be fixed to bring the property up to quality, whose responsibility is it to fix those items? Some people get the inspection report and they think that that's what they're accepting as their responsibility, meaning the new owner's responsibility to fix it. Well, I'm going to buy the property. Here are the things that I've got to fix. Am I accepting that as my responsibility? And thus I'm going to go forward with buying the property, accepting that as my responsibility. What I would say is that's not your responsibility, because I know when the realtor brought me through the property and they did my first walkthrough before I negotiated price, the realtor did not point out all the different challenges with the property. I'm not a contractor. I don't know all the details of what makes a property good or bad, or I certainly don't know all the codes that need to be followed in every part of construction when they're building or maintaining a property. I don't know any of that, or at least I'm not licensed to know that. And so when I get into contract, I hire an expert who tells me all those details. They list out every item, and what I have them do is price out how much it would be to actually shift that, to repair all those things that need to be fixed. Seems fair. And so a windowsill that needs painting or replacing, a window is leaking or sticks and that needs to be changed out. maybe a couple of the utilities need to be adjusted, or even just some of the air ducts need to be replaced. Whatever the case may be, here's an itemized list of every single item that needs to be fixed on the property. And it's itemized with a price tag that we can then total. Well, imagine as a seller, you getting a whole report saying all the things wrong with your property. What would you do? How would you react? So here I got the report. I had my realtor, I had a buyer's agent, hand it to the seller's agent, and then to in turn hand it to the owner without any message from me. That's where the crazy is as crazy does. Because imagine this was over $100,000 worth of repairs that needed to be done on this property. And they got that report. They're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, it needs to be fixed. They went ballistic. The guy went nuts. They thought I was crazy. Now, if you're negotiating with crazy, how do you negotiate with crazy? How do you actually respond to crazy? There's no proper response. You don't know how they're going to act because you think they're crazy. So when you act the crazy part, people don't know how to respond to you, and you take them off kilter. And now they just react on an emotional level. And that's where this guy was when he got the report, didn't know how to react. Then I just calmed it down and said, well, you know, this item and this item, well, we can put that aside. However, these other items, you actually need to get them fixed, or you're going to have to give me a major credit off of the purchase price, because now you're going to give your monkey onto me. I'm going to have to take responsibility for this and fix it when I get it. So we're going to have to discount the price some. In that methodology, we've ended up with tens of thousands in this case and hundreds of thousands of dollars over years. And in every deal, at least a few $1,000s taken off the price or credited back. Dump the monkey, bring it to their doorstep, make sure that they're keeping responsibility. So a couple other laws, and we learned to stack all of this, not to go into more detail. We're going to do that in another time only. Absolutely. You have questions on this, absolutely go to www.hpmaverick.com. Ask me the questions that you would like to ask, because these negotiation strategies can work for you in a heartbeat. So where do you begin? You must change. Absolutely. And the biggest challenge is that some people think that I could do it, but they can't. And I got to tell you that most of these are scripted out. They're laid out. They're easy to apply. And we've been able to help people in real estate as well as outside of real estate really learn negotiations, and they're able to apply it across the board in their world. Patricia Maddox increased her income by over 10 times that, going from $50,000 to $500,000 in 12 months, simply by learning how to negotiate effectively with strategic partners and with clients. Chris Phillips, same thing, real estate. We were able to create $150,000 in rehab flip profits over 12 months, simply by learning how to negotiate effectively and creating deals versus finding them. And we even taught him how to build a sales force and negotiate in sales, core sales in another business that he was running, and create another $120,000. Net profit to Chris was over $220,000 over 1 year, applying the skill sets that I taught him. Paul Brown, same thing. Went from $30,000 to $175,000, learning techniques and strategies and applying what I taught him. And Barbara and Ken Tomeko, they have created, I say a 7-figure club is what they're in. They've been with my community for over 10 years, which means I've been coaching them ongoing for over 10 years. And in that process, why would they continue to coach with me year after year, month after month? For over 10 years now, is that over the last 10 years, we've created over $10 million for their business in assets and cash flow. And they're about to jump up to another 10 million plus because of a new project that they're finishing up in the next 12 months that is going to skyrocket them to a whole nother level, all because of the strategic planning that we've done over the last 10 years to create a magnitude of results for Ken, Barbara, and their whole family, because we've built a legacy and a family business. You're interested in knowing more on how to do that, how to really create a future for yourself and for your loved ones, come talk to me. hpmaverick.com. Going to skip through some of this. This is some of the platform of what we've done with Barbara and Ken Tomeko over the last multitude of years. And it says 8 million. They're actually well over 10 million, about to go to 20. I don't have the time to make all this happen. And this is one of the biggest obstacles, I would say, objections that I have with people that have come into my realm. They say a couple things. They say, I don't have the money. And we've talked about that a couple times already today and yesterday, that there's tons of money when you learn how to grab hold of it. And I can absolutely talk to you about that. How to get private funders, how to get private equity partners, how to really find the money that's out there. Because money is not a limitless resource. It's not finite. Limited, it's limitless. It's not a finite resource. You can grab hold and have money coming into your world in abundance when you know how to use it, how to find it, how to access it. So it becomes that money is one of those resources that you just need to learn how to become more resourceful. Having lack of time is another equation. Time is one of the only, if not the only resource that is limited, that's finite. Once the time is passed, it's done. You never get that second back again. And so one of the things I want to teach you and want to share with you is how to utilize all your time to the highest and best use. How to make sure at the end of your day, you don't end up with a conversation, woulda, coulda, shoulda, that you actually end up with a conversation about the magnitude of fulfillment that you've had in your life and how you have lived to your fullest potential. That's really key. And that's what I strive for every single day, is to live up to my fullest potential to create more. I offer up to you Maverick Time, which is a 5-day training series on how to really get clear with your time management, how to really get clear with your prioritization, how to make sure that you're utilizing your time to the highest and best use. All my best techniques and strategies around time management available for free. It's all free to you. It's my gift. Absolutely go to hpmaverick.com, grab hold of an appointment with me so that we can talk turkey, and grab hold of your Maverick Time training series, all for free. So let's talk. Let's absolutely get real with what we can do together. hpmaverick.com. And here's what I will tell you about this appointment is that you're going to end up with the Maverick Time training series, which is a 5-day training series. There's video training. There's some downloads in it talking about how to really create time out of thin air, some key management techniques, my 5 simple steps, and really how to have a great relationship with time ongoing. You're also going to get some downloads, my Maverick Time ebook, which is a great download. Absolutely, you're going to get this as well as the video training, all this for free. And you're also going to be able to schedule a one-on-one time with me. This is true consult. This is you and I just being real with one another and talking turkey about what you can be doing in your real estate game or your rest of your life in really building yourself up to have the magnitude of results that you deserve. So go ahead and go to hpmaverick.com, and I'm going to open up now for some questions as well. And I want to make sure that we have you all set. The hpmaverick.com link is already in the chat so that you can grab hold of that. In the meantime, I think I've got a couple minutes left, and I want to ask all of you any questions, comments about what I've already laid out for you, because I went rapid fire so that we could have some time on the backside. Any questions or comments? Go ahead and type them in the chat. One of the things that I'll finish up with, I talked about some of my favorite negotiation strategies and my favorite techniques. Definitely reject the monkey and dump the monkey. Reject the monkey is make sure that you are not accepting their challenges. So you're dumping their real challenges, their problems, the things that they created back in their lap. And there's also dump the monkey. There's the ability for you to take your challenges and put them onto their lap, see what happens, and see if they know to dump the monkey back at you. If they do not, they'll actually solve a lot of your challenges or take responsibility for them. That'll make negotiations so much easier. A couple other key components. I talked about, and I mentioned in there, Newton's first law. We talk a little bit about tax strategies. Jeremy, what about interesting component? Tax strategies, 1031 exchange, or your IRA and self-directed IRAs and those sorts of things. Definitely a side component to negotiations, because we're not negotiating with those, we're just applying them into our world. Yes. Yeah, so all of those work, and all the tax strategies have nothing to do with what we're talking about. And I say that meaning that you can negotiate just as hard with a 1031 exchange property as you can with a property that's not a 1031 exchange. You can negotiate just as hard for a 401k or an IRA, a self-directed IRA strategy or product that you're going to buy in your IRA as you can outside of it. The negotiations itself has nothing whatsoever to do with the tax strategies that you're utilizing on the backside. And that's really key. Several people get hung up that they think there's a certain amount of leeway that they have within those strategies to be able to really push hard or to change, to coordinate the rules to their favor. And there's a few minor limitations, but for the most part, same strategies. And that's really key for all to know. I will also say that I use these same strategies when I'm negotiating for financing, for instance. I'll use strategies like this with the banks. Really key. And most people think that they don't have leeway to strategize or to negotiate with the banker. And you do. And it's one of the things, for instance, Barbara and Ked Tomeko, and I've had a time frame to be able to work with them. And that always helps, is because we laid a foundation of success. So the first year or two, we laid out some success track, if you will, where we were able to do multiple deals that prove that they were worthy to, and they were a good risk, if you will. Well, now, once you are proven to be a good risk, which should be all the bank is worried about, should you be able to get a lower interest rate and better terms from the bank for every one of your loans? Yes. However, unless you know the power you have in that negotiations, you'll end up taking whatever they give you and not saying a word. And one of the things I taught Barbara and Ken, and we went through a process to say, here's what you want to be saying to the bank here. And we scripted it all out. Here's what you want to be negotiating with the bank. And here's the psychology and the process why they will absolutely say yes. And in doing so, we created millions of dollars of low interest or zero interest or 100% financing, all from the banks, because of because of those negotiation strategies. And that's really key. So I went a little bit off of your specific question. And if you wanted to ask a little more detailed on that, that would be great. Because you might have been leaning towards something that I absolutely didn't touch on. Any other questions? Yes, that was perfect. Thanks, Jeremy. Absolutely, Jeremy, you want to talk in more detail about any specific deals that you're going through, any specific challenges? That's where the HP Maverick and the consult with me really comes in. And I do mean that. I usually spend about an hour with my clients when they make appointments like this. I believe the appointment scheduler actually has it down for 20 minutes only. I design room in my calendar. And these are real deal consults where you do talk to me and we do spend some time together to talk real deal stuff. So go ahead and go to hpmaverick.com and schedule that time. Want to touch on, and I think I've got a couple more moments. Want to touch on a couple of my favorite final negotiation strategies. One is Newton's first law is what I call it. And an object in motion will stay in motion. This is what Newton declared on physics, only it's true with the psychological mentality of the human condition. And it plays into negotiations in this way. When people are engaged in conversation, when they're engaged in activity, when they're actually putting forth effort, time and energy, it doesn't have to be even money, time and energy towards an outcome, they are more readily going to justify and stay the course towards that projected outcome with every motion of effort they put in. So what does all that mean? What that means is the more you can get people to be talking and the more effort you can be getting them to put forth towards doing a deal with you, the more likely they are to keep moving forward regardless of the obstacles and blocks that get put in their way. So I get someone to start talking. I get the property moving forward. I get them to come back and have another conversation, get back another conversation, have them send me financials, have me send me information about the property, have another meeting. I get it under contract. We have another meeting. We go through another set of information that I need to get from them, maybe another set of information. By this time, do they want the deal to be closed? Absolutely. Not only that, if the deal doesn't close, they have got to, psychologically, they will beat themselves up because they wasted all that time dealing with me. And why didn't they just get out from the beginning? And so they'll have to justify why they stayed in, which is really difficult if the deal didn't actually produce any results, if it didn't actually close. So here they are in a dilemma. At the 11th hour, and that I come forward with a concession that I'm demanding in negotiations, and I say, here's what I need, or otherwise I'm out. They've got to justify that that concession is greater than, so they wouldn't want to give it, that concession is going to be more painful to give me than the loss of all the time they've already spent in the deal. And that's where the brain works. And so when you get them to keep spending time and energy on closing a deal, getting to the finish line, any little concession or even sometimes major concessions that you ask in the 11th hour will absolutely be given to you, because they do not want to have to justify that they wasted all this extra time in getting to a close that never happened. It's Newton's first law in negotiations, where negotiations, the longer you have them go through and the more you have them put in to making that negotiations happen, the more likely they are to take a lower price or to take some loss of concessions or give up concessions all because they don't want to say that they wasted all that time. It's one of the reasons why, and this is why I love this, is that I see it all over the place. It's one of the reasons why big corporations, they'll have people go through job interviews, and they'll have them go through like 5, 10, and sometimes 15 different interviews before they'll offer them the job. That way, when they offer them the job, whatever salary and whatever benefits that they get in that package that's offered to them, they readily accept. And they become longer, more loyal employees because they spent all this time to get the job. They couldn't possibly justify not taking the offer or refusing it because of something small, because they already spent all this time to get it. They put in the effort. Understand? Here's another great one, and so much fun is send in the subs. It's one of the techniques, send in the subs. Now, send in the subs, here's what it's about. Imagine you are, that comes from a sporting analogy. So in soccer, I used to play soccer. You have a soccer game, and the soccer game is tending to give momentum. The other side is winning, winning, winning. And the momentum is the other side's just like pushing the envelope, and they're just like, everything's hitting on fire for them. What you do is you shift out like most of the team, if not the whole team. You just take all the players you had on the field out and you put all new ones in. It shifts things up. All of a sudden, the other team doesn't know how to play it as well because you've shifted up the players. So now they're off center a little bit, and it shifts the momentum of negotiations to bring it back to what we're talking about. It shifts up the game. So what I do is in the 11th hour, when I see negotiations are going the wrong way, I'll shift it out, and all of a sudden I'll pull myself out of negotiations and I'll put someone else in. I'll say, listen, I'm busy. I'll be on a business trip for the next couple of days. Listen, my partner is going to come in, or my assistant's going to come in, and they're going to finish up with our conversations. They're going to stand in for me, whatever's going on. They have the authority to work with you, and I'll put them into play. A couple of things happen is they don't know how to respond to this new person, so they'll be testing them out and feeling them out, which will put us at an advantage. 2 is that sending in the sub, well, then we'll have a higher authority close situation where whatever needs to be done, although I said they have the authority, once they're in there, they will say, no, I've got to check with Paul with this kind of change. I've got to check with Paul before I say anything. And it gives a pause to the whole negotiations. It's another great technique, and especially in negotiations, wins just huge amount, especially when you're losing ground in long-term negotiations, especially larger projects. So just a couple things I wanted to share with you. I just wanted to give you as much as possible. This is Paul Finck, the Maverick Millionaire. I'm here for all of you. Go ahead and go to hpmaverick.com. It is my pleasure to serve all of you. This is your chance. Grab a bunch of information, get a consult with me, and let's make it happen. Jason, how we doing?
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. Does anyone have any questions? Other than that, you definitely want to book an appointment with Paul. Paul's great. Thank you again for coming on, Paul, and sharing your wisdom on negotiations and tips and how to negotiate effectively. So thank you again.
You're welcome, Jason. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And guys, take advantage of everything that you see here. You've got a great platform of people. And
I want to welcome our next speaker, Brad Blazar. He's a raising capital expert. Brad has raised over $2 billion of capital from investors, and he's going to talk to you today about how to raise capital from high net worth individuals so you can fund your real estate projects, fund your business, fund that special project you have. And you're in for a real treat with Brad Blazar. So I want to welcome Brad to the High Performance SaaS Summit.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Welcome, everybody. Brad Blazar here. I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here with Jason and Paul and myself. I know from looking at the agenda over the last 2 days that there's been a lot of interest in real estate. interest in wholesaling. Obviously, Paul Finck just got done talking about real estate. And today I want to talk about something that ties into that. To give you a little bit about my background, my name is Brad Blazar. And I knew at a very, very young age that I wanted to live an extraordinary life. I wanted to live a life of abundance. The only problem is that I lacked capital. I knew I wanted to start a business. And one of the things that initially held me back was not the fear of failing. It was not the limiting beliefs or the self-doubt. It was really the fact that I personally just did not have the money to start the type of business I wanted to build. But at the age of 20, while I was studying architecture at the University of Texas, I went to work for a very small oil company. And my job was to get on the telephone and basically reach out to prospective high net worth investors to see if they wanted to invest in our company's drilling programs. And I was just working 3 days a week between classes after school, roughly 3 hours a day. And I ended up making close to $100,000 working 9 hours a week, part-time. And so I asked myself, if I'm making this kind of money, which is more than most kids end up making walking out with a 4-year degree and a diploma in hand, I wonder how much I can make if I really did this full time. And so I went to work for a second company. And unfortunately, after about a year, through one of the investors that I had cultivated, we uncovered some fraud. And so I didn't want to be associated with that. And I ultimately resigned. But the great that came out of that was the network of investors that I had cultivated over roughly 2 years turned to me. And this was before we had things like Zoom, before we had things like Skype. And they said, well, Brad, what are you going to do now? And I said, I don't know. And here I was, 23 years old, basically studying architecture with the ambitions of being a real estate developer. And they said, why don't you just do what they were doing, but do it with some honesty? And I realized at that moment that I had the opportunity of a lifetime. And what I want to share with you today, folks, is the most valuable lesson that anybody can ever teach you. And that lesson is how to use other people's money to build your wealth. You see, a lot of you that are on this call today probably have goals. Maybe you have dreams and ambitions of buying or building or scaling a business. Maybe you have goals and ambitions of investing in real estate, or better yet, maybe you're doing it now, but you want to scale. You want to take it to the next level. You want to start doing multifamily, big deals. You're going to need access to money. Unless you've got a couple $1 million burning a hole in your pocket, how are you going to get access to the hundreds of thousands or the millions that you're going to need? What you need is investors. And so in today's session, what I want to share with you folks is literally the secrets and the key ingredients that I have perfected over 25 plus years, not only raising tens of millions of dollars for my own company. When we were in business, I had 35 employees on my payroll. We were raising millions of dollars every month, funding drilling projects in Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana. And then when I dissolved my business after running it for close to a decade, because the Tax Reform Act dramatically changed the landscape of things and oil prices collapsed, I went back to school and came out, and since that time have sourced over $2 billion in counting. A lot for other people, a lot for myself, but most importantly is I've taught dozens of other people how to raise money from high net worth accredited investors. So let me share my screen with you here today. We're going to go ahead and get started. And my goal really for you this afternoon is that when we're done, you have an understanding of really how to raise capital from high net worth accredited investors so that you can buy, build, or scale an existing business, or maybe fund your project without having any track record whatsoever. Doesn't matter about your age, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter whether you have any experience. Now, here's the key. If you're willing to stay to the end, I've got a special gift for you. And what I want to give to all of you that stay to the end is something I call the 4-step sales blueprint. It literally is a blueprint that anybody can use to raise millions of dollars from high net worth accredited investors. I've used this blueprint. I've taught others to do the same. And more importantly, if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you a couple other free surprises as well. Now, what makes this training different than most other training? Number one, it'll work for anybody that applies it. I mean, after all, how could a 23-year-old kid without a track record raise millions of dollars using the same skills and the same things that I'm going to share with you today? The second thing I'll share with you, folks, is you don't need a proven track record. You don't need any type of prior experience or prior performance for what I'm going to teach you today to work. You can literally raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, or better yet, millions of dollars without spending tons of money to do so. And here's the most important part. You're going to learn it's not just the skills. It's not just the blueprint. It's the mindset that goes behind it as well. Because really, you have to adopt a mindset to become successful at raising capital from high net worth accredited investors. And lastly, you'll learn exactly what you need to be successfully prepared. I coach and I consult entrepreneurs all around the world that want to raise money. And a lot of times they tell me they've been trying to raise capital and they have floundered, or worse yet, they failed. They're not able to do it successfully. And what I typically find in talking to them is that they're not prepared. They don't have the right tools. They don't have the right things to become successful. So as I said earlier, I've successfully raised in excess of $2 billion and counting, folks, from high net worth accredited investors, broker dealers, RIAs, family offices. I mean, in the capital markets, you name it, I've done it. I started an oil company at the age of 23 years old, dropped out of college, okay, and literally got to the point where we were raising millions of dollars a month. Millions a month from high net worth investors coast to coast to fund our various programs. Today, people pay me a retainer anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 to consult with them on literally how to raise capital, how to put their deals together, how to put the collateral together that they're going to need to go out to investors, and then how to make introductions to family offices, large advisory firms. In addition, I've also worked for some of the largest companies in financial services, and I've personally closed the largest transactions for multiple companies. Allianz, which at the time I believe was the first or second largest insurance company and financial services company in the world, closed the largest transaction in the history of the company, $11 million while I was there. Then for another company based out of California called SmartStop, which is a premier owner for self-storage facilities throughout the country and also up in Canada, closed multiple big sales, 9 million, 7.5 million, 5 million. For Hartman, big owner of apartments and office buildings based here in Houston, Texas, where I'm located, 2 million. And on some of these transactions, folks, the commissions alone were at or very close to 6 figures. Now, the other thing I'll share with you is that I'm also a podcast host. And today I host the second highest ranked podcast in the world to help people cope with COVID-19. And that ranking actually comes from Yahoo Finance and Yahoo News, as well as Digital Journal, which is the digital presence for the Wall Street Journal. Second highest ranking business podcast. Also have 2 books. I'm the author of a book called On the Wings of Eagles, Learning to Soar in Life, which shortly after it was published became the #1 top rated read for young entrepreneurs on a major blog over in the United Kingdom. My second book is called Put Some Thrive in Your Hive, How to Unlock Performance in Any Organization. And in addition, I've appeared on, I can't tell you how many business podcasts like Roland Fraser's Business Lunch, Bradley's Dropping Bombs, Joel Brown's Addicted to Success. And basically what I become is their go-to guy for raising capital. Roland Fraser, who today is one of the top business consultants, tells people if you need to raise capital, the guy to talk to is Brad Blazar. So over the course of my career, I've done a lot of things right. A lot of people look at me and say, man, everything Brad Blazar seems to touch turns to gold. He's got a top-rated podcast. His book became one of the top-rated reads for young entrepreneurs. Dude's raised over $2 billion in capital. He started an oil company at 23. But here's the key, folks. I've also done a lot of things wrong. I'll openly admit I've paid some very expensive tuition, lost a lot of money, and I've also done a lot of things wrong. And having done this for 30 years and having raised, $2 billion in capital, here's some things I've learned. Number one, I've learned anybody can raise capital. Okay, don't let the limiting beliefs, your self-doubt, the fear hold you back. I've learned anybody can do this. Matter of fact, when I was in the oil business, I had a guy show up for an interview in a pair of jeans that had holes in the knees, a flannel shirt, dust and dirt covered boots. He looked like David Spade in the movie Joe Dirt with a big mullet for a haircut and a big Fu Manchu mustache. And I taught him exactly what I'm going to share with you today. And he made over $250,000 with me his first year. So if he can do it, anybody can do it. You see, investors don't care as much about you as they care about the deal. And more importantly, the prospects for them to make money. At the end of the day, it's all about what's in it for me as an investor. It's like Shark Tank. You're going up there and you're pitching to investors. They want to know what the prospective returns are going to be. They want to know if they can trust you. And if they can, the opportunity to get capital from them for them to write you a check goes up considerably. The other big misconception and false belief that I want to dispel today is you don't need a Rolodex of rich people. You don't need to live in a country club to get started. So don't let that hold you back. And most importantly, what I've learned is there's a right way to do this and there's a wrong way to do this. And that's one of the reasons I've created Capital School. It's to teach people the right way to do this so that they can have success and get access to all the money they need, whether it's just a few hundred or whether they want to scale and literally build a business like I did, get salespeople and raise millions of dollars a month. So like I said, I've learned this, folks, the hard way, spending years and more importantly, literally spending thousands of dollars, countless hours, trial and error to get to the point where I'm at today, where I can literally pick up the phone and raise millions of dollars over the course of a month. Here's the best part. Because you're here today on Jason Burke's High Performance Success Summit, you get to cheat. You're going to get to learn the easy way. So here's the hard way. Number one, I can't tell you how many people I see, folks, that host big, high-end, expensive events because they see everybody else do it. They think they've got to host events at fancy steakhouses and bring people together and give a nice keynote PowerPoint presentation. And let me tell you, I've done hundreds of those over the years for financial advisors and for some of the companies I've worked for. And what you get is a bunch of plate lickers, a bunch of people that are just showing up there for the free dinner. And you also don't get the real wealthy, the real affluent rich people that you're looking for. The other thing that I've also learned is that people don't understand the importance of creating what you're going to find out is called an investor kit. An investor kit has three things that you're going to learn about. Okay. Most people don't have a complete investor kit, so they don't make a good first impression. The third thing, and one of the biggest mistakes you can ever make, whether you're doing real estate, whether you're trying to buy or build a business, is to call on friends and family, thinking that they'll fund your deals. If they do, the worst thing you can do is take their money. Because if that deal, for whatever reason, doesn't work out, if that deal goes bust, you still want to be able to show up and show your face at the holiday dinners. You're not going to be welcome in the family, or your friends ain't going to want to hang around with you if you lose their money. And the hard way, folks, is going to private equity firms, going to professional capital firms or lenders, because they have extensive due diligence processes in place. A lot of times they're going to do a credit check, and many of you may have marginal credit where you don't have a 680 or a 720 or higher score to go in and borrow hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. So if you want the easy way that has allowed me and allowed dozens of other people to build a multi-million-dollar oil company, or many other people to raise hundreds of thousands and millions a month, then let me teach you today exactly how to do that. You see, in the past year, I've consulted literally dozens of people on raising capital. In the past year, personally, I've also raised over $25 million on various deals, including my own real estate projects, multifamily mainly. And here's the best part. I didn't spend a small fortune. I didn't know any of the investors prior to contacting them. And I did none of it at all without any expensive events. Didn't have to host any dinner meetings, didn't have to do any of that. Now, I'm going to preface this. The results that I'm talking about are not typical, okay? I'm going to walk you through all the key ingredients today, and I'm going to share with you this, what I call 4-step sales process that I've used to raise millions of dollars. But here's the key. While I'm willing to share with you exactly what's worked for me and others that have used the system for free today, the only reason it doesn't work is it doesn't work when people don't take action. Okay? This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This does take some time, but if you're willing to listen to what I'm going to share with you today about the art of raising money and raising capital from investors to fund your projects, to fund your real estate deals, and then you're willing to take action, this most absolutely, folks, will 100% work. Now, let me just dispel 3 what I call misbeliefs about raising money, okay? These are what I call the secrets. These are the secrets that my colleagues and other people don't want you to know. Secret number 1, and one of the big misconceptions, is your age, your track record, your prior performance doesn't matter. Anybody can have success. Secret number 2, big misconception, you can actually cultivate a very high quality list of high net worth accredited investors that you can solicit for capital. I'm going to show you how to do that today. And then secret number 3 is you can actually see results. You can actually have people sending you money in about 4 to 5 weeks rather than months, and begin closing investor capital very quickly. Let me ask you, how would it change your life if over the next 60, 90 days, you could raise $1 million or $2 million from high net worth accredited investors? How would it change your family's life to have access to that kind of capital? It would probably change it dramatically. So let's talk for a moment about secret number 1. Your age, track record, prior performance, what you've done in the past doesn't matter, folks. Anybody can have success raising capital from investors. After all, how could I, 23-year-old kid, that's not going to college, basically dropped out of school with no prior record, just picking up a phone, literally cold calling prospects, cold calling investors, raise millions of dollars a month, and more importantly, teach other people how to do exactly the same thing? You see, how I built and how I scaled my company is I got really good at this. And then I taught others that came to work for me to do exactly the same thing. and to do it as well, just like the guy that came and interviewed wearing jeans that had holes in the knees that earned $250,000 his first year with me. And in doing this, I literally built a multi-million-dollar oil company. And I did it all without calling on any friends or family. I did it all calling on people I didn't know. I did it all using this thing called the 4-step sales blueprint that I'm going to share with you today. I'm going to share with you some of my secrets. Now, here's secret number 2, big misconception. You can cultivate a high quality list of high net worth accredited investors that you can actually solicit, call, and get capital from. But I also want to share with you today why most people like you, like me, should not waste your money on big events or outings, okay? This is a big plus because if you're planning to host something like a dinner event, or maybe you've done it before, it's expensive. You got to get a mailing list. Then you got to figure out how you're going to invite people. Then you got to actually pay for the dinner, okay? Don't do this, folks. You don't need to do this. It's expensive. It's costly. Get a lot of plate lickers. You get a lot of unqualified prospects that show up. And the big money investors, they don't care. They don't come to these events. And the most important thing, the reason I don't do them, is it takes a tremendous amount of planning. You know, I'm a busy professional. I don't have enough hours in the day to plan a big dinner outing and confirm the RSVPs and then call people the day before and make sure they're going to be there. So I want to share with you what I call the big experiment that failed. I was actually interviewing for a position as the president of a multi-billion-dollar company based in New York on Wall Street. And they had created a real estate division within the company and hired a brilliant real estate entrepreneur to run this. And as I was talking to the CEO, he said, Brad, we're hosting a big event in Houston, Texas, where you live. Joe's going to be there, the president of our new real estate division. Another young lady named Karen's going to be there. And we're going to be doing it at a fancy steakhouse called Sullivan's. You know where that is? And I said, sure, absolutely. He said, well, I'd like to invite you, give you a chance to see the presentation, give you a chance to meet Joe, and basically hear what it is we're doing. And so the night of the event, I showed up about 30 minutes early so I could introduce myself to perhaps my new colleague who I was going to be working with. And we waited, and they had a beautiful room at a very nice steakhouse set up for about 30, 35 people with a nice big screen at the end. And we waited. And 10 past the hour, nobody showed up. And I looked to Joe and I said, Joe, we can't blame it on the weather. It ain't raining. We waited. Folks, nobody showed up for that event. They failed. They spent thousands and they failed. And I looked at Joe and I said, it looks like you need old Brad Blazar working in your team because I've raised tens of millions of dollars and I know how to do this. You see, the old model is here's a company, you think they'd be smart, who's managing billions of dollars, host a big event at a high-end steakhouse. They probably had to pay the restaurant some type of a huge amount of money, and they didn't have a single person show up for the event, not one. The new model, which is what I've done, is for a couple $100, not thousands, for a couple $100, you can buy a list of high net worth accredited investors. And I'm going to show you where to go to actually get these lists. You can actually buy a list of rich people. And then you can use my 4-step sales process to contact, to build relationships, to actually close investor capital. And the results, folks, is that the sales team that we had made roughly 30 to 40 calls a day to high net worth investors. The first, what we call round of investors, the first investors closed in 3 weeks from starting this process and invested thousands of dollars. And literally in a month and a half, 6 weeks, we'd raised $1 million, $1 million in 6 weeks. We added 3 salespeople, and we grew that to a rate of $1 million a month that we were raising. And we successfully closed a $25 million offering in less than a year. So what you have is the old school, big company spending probably $10,000, $12,000 to do an event, didn't work. You have the new school, the Brad Blazar method, probably spent $1,200 to buy a list, just calling people, successfully raised $25 million in less than a year. Now here's misconception number 3, or what I call disbelief. It doesn't take a long time. You see, you can start seeing results, folks, in literally 4 to 5 weeks rather than months, and literally start closing investor capital quickly. The big mistake a lot of people make is they start calling on what I call professional money, going to private equity firms, venture capital firms, angel investors. And these places have tremendous due diligence processes that sometimes take months to get through. But if you're talking directly to the investor, maybe it's a doctor, maybe it's a business owner, maybe it's a partner in a law firm, where that individual can make the decision and make it fairly quickly, going from A to Z, going from the first call to getting a check in the mail can take place very quickly. It gives you the ability as a real estate professional to look at a deal and commit, knowing that you can probably raise the money in 6 to 7 weeks and close on $1 million transaction using what I'm going to share with you today. You see, the new school, folks, the Brad Blazar method is proven. You're going to start seeing that this works once you understand the process behind it. So today, what I want to share with you is what I call the 4-step sales blueprint. This is a process that you can actually use. Pick up the phone or use Zoom or some other method to close money. And I've got basically a thing called the 4-step sales blueprint that I'm going to make available here at the end this afternoon when I'm finished. The first thing that you have to understand, folks, is that you have to build trust. You have to build a relationship with anybody that is going to be a prospective investor with you. That's the most important element of this whole process. So what you do is you get your list. Okay, and I'm going to show you where to go to get the list. Okay, I've got contacts in the industry where you can literally buy lists of rich people. And then all you're going to do is you're going to devote some time during the day. You're going to have their names, you're going to have their addresses, you're going to have their phone numbers. And so you spend time in the day, you block out maybe 2-3 hours a day where you're just going to be prospecting, building your funnel. Okay, and this process is built over 4 calls. The first call is just what we call build a relationship. So let's imagine that I'm calling out to prospect Jason Burke. Jason is a rich dude, lives in a country club, and I've got his name and I've got his address and his phone number. And all I'm going to do is just call him up. So I call him up. Hey, is this Jason Burke? Jason says, yeah, it sure is. Hey, Jason, Brad Blazar here from 5 Star Capital. I was calling today to simply see if you have an interest in real estate investments. My company is a real estate private equity firm, and we work with investors coast to coast. Is that an area that you've invested in before? 9 out of 10 times, the person that you're calling is going to say something. And 9 out of 10 times, what they're going to say is, I'm not interested. And that's fine. But here's the difference, folks, between being a salesperson and being a closer. You see, there's a big difference, I believe, between selling and closing. Salespeople don't close. They flirt. I call it selling the flirt. Don't sell flirt, close. And so when the person on the other end says something like, I'm not interested, before they hang up, you need to literally stick your foot in the door. Of course, you're doing it over the phone. And very quickly, you need to say something like, oh, Mr. Burke, I can certainly understand, sir, just out of curiosity before I let you go, is it because you've invested in real estate before and the results you achieved didn't turn out like you had expected? A lot of times they'll open up. And all you're really trying to do, folks, on this very first call is get people to open up so you can ask questions and build trust and build a relationship. And once they say something, you need to come right back very quickly and say, well, let me just tell you, sir, I'm not calling to sell you anything today. Matter of fact, I don't have anything I can offer. And the line that I use, which works so beautifully, ties into the whole psychology that makes this whole process work, folks. And what I tell people is, Mr. Burke, the reason I don't have anything I can offer you today, sir, is because we always give our existing investors the right of first refusal on our ensuing programs. And most of the times they fill up real quickly. But over the course of this first call, as you're building relationship and trust, you're asking questions, you're taking notes, you're going to get to the end. And all you want really to do at the end is just get permission to send the prospect something. And what I teach is how to put together what we call an investor kit, an investor package that includes 3 things. It includes a 1-pager or a little brochure that explains who you are, what you do. We work with you on packaging your whole PowerPoint presentation. And then we also work on creating what we call an offering circular, private placement memorandum. But at the end of that first call, all you're going to do is say, Mr. Burke, I'd love to just send you some information on our company, tell you a little bit about who we are, and just stay in touch. Is that okay? Sure. And all you're going to do, folks, is just send something that they can take a look at, pique his interest. Okay. Now, what I typically do about 4 or 5 days after that first call is I create what I call a nonlinear touch. Now, let me explain to you. In sales, there are what we call linear and nonlinear touches. A linear is a phone call. It's a Zoom. It's having an actual meeting with somebody. A nonlinear is sending an email or directing their attention to an article. You're staying in touch, but you're doing it indirectly. So typically what I would do after that first contact, maybe 4 or 5 days later, is I'd send Mr. Burke an email that maybe speaks to the tax benefits of owning real estate. And I would just say something very brief like, hey, Mr. Burke, it was great talking to you a few days ago. I ran across this article and I thought it might be of interest to you. Because here's the thing, folks, I want to add value. So important, add value. Okay? Now, the second call takes place about 8 to 10 days after the first call. And so hopefully you have a CRM system. I recommend a CRM like Salesforce, but there are many other, Goldmine Act. You can get some free ones on the internet. In Capital School, we teach how to use these different CRMs. But that second call takes place roughly 8 to 10 days later. And here, all you're really trying to find out is if they got the information you sent them. And so on that second call, it's just, hey, Mr. Burke, Brad Blazar calling again from 5 Star Capital. How's the weather out there where you live? Great. And you want to spend about 2 to 3 minutes just, nice. How you doing? How's the weather? Have you done anything exciting since I last talked to you? Great. But then you want to shift the focus. And right away again, just let them know. I just want to let you know I'm not calling today to sell you anything or offer anything, but I did want to just check in and make sure you got the information that I did send to you. Yep, I sure did. Just like the first call, what they typically say is, I have not had a chance to review it yet, or I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Now, that's fine. But again, you're not a salesman selling flirt, you're a closer. So before you say, hey, that's fine, let me call you back in a couple days, which is what a salesperson would say, is you say, Mr. Burke, that's fine. I'll tell you what, if you have access to it or it's somewhere close to you where you can go get it, there's a couple of pages I'd like to bring to your attention. Why don't you go get it? So it's either, in their office, maybe you caught them in their office, or if you send it digitally and they're sitting in front of a computer, they're going to go find the email. And then all you want to do is you just want to bring their attention to 2 or 3 pages and what it is you sent them. You might want to touch upon the article that you sent them that discussed the tax benefits and respond to that. Again, you're building trust. You're building a relationship. Okay, you're trying to get this person to open up to you, to realize that you're not selling. And again, like I said earlier, it's the mindset. It's the psychology. Here you are, probably the first person that's ever called somebody that's never asked them for money, never asked them to write a check. You're not selling them. You're adding value. You're educating them. And again, towards the end, you say, hey, just like I told you before, don't have anything to sell because most of our programs fill up fairly quickly. We always offer existing investors the right of first refusal. But Mr. Burke, can I put your name on the list? Maybe get back to you in the event we have an opening on a future program? Sure. So all you're going to do now is you're going to wait another 8 to 10 days. And you're finally going to get to call number 3. Okay, this is the call where you now have an opening, folks. And here's where attitude and mindset is so very important. This is kind of getting back to what Paul Finck said about you got to shut up. When you ask for the sale or you ask a question and you're closing, you got to learn to be quiet. So the third call is you're calling the prospect back and you're saying, hey, Mr. Burke, Brad Blazar calling at 5 Star Capital. Last time we spoke, you asked me to give you a call in the event we had an opening on a future program. It just so happens we do. I'm doing you a favor today because you asked me to get back in touch with you. The mindset you have to have, folks, in this call is some will, some won't, so what, some are waiting. You have to come across where you're not selling or pitching. You're doing the person a favor. You're calling him because he's asked you to. You're calling because the person's asked you to get back in touch, which tells you what? Tells you they have an interest. See the magic? It tells you they have an interest. So you're going to call them back and say, it just so happens we do have an opening. We don't have a lot left, just a few $100,000, but I did want to give you the benefit and discuss our current offering with you. And then what you do is you tell them about the project or you tell them about the deal. We're buying a 132 unit property down in Naples, 3 blocks from the beach. It's at 94% occupancy. It was built in 2010. I mean, it's beautiful. And the best part about it, Mr. Burke, is we're getting it at a great price. We had it appraised. It came in at an appraisal of 8.7 mil. We got it under contract for 6.8 because it's an older couple that wants to retire and they're looking for a quick sale. And we perceive that this is a great value add opportunity. Can I send you the information? Now, here's what's so important. Most people, folks, that do this do not send what I call a professional package. When we work with you and when we partner with you, we make sure, man, that when you send that package, it is badass. Here's what you need to have in an investor kit. Number 1, beautiful one-pager. You've got to have a one-pager front and back that's got pictures, explains who you are, what it is you do, explains to them the investment opportunity, the potential to generate returns, etc. The second thing they're going to get, man, is a beautiful, beautiful color PowerPoint presentation. I mean, beautiful, nice plastic cover. And then they're going to get a beautiful offering memorandum, not just a couple of pieces of paper you staple together and print it off at FedEx Kinko's. They're going to get literally 130, 150 page legal document called a prospectus that we help you prepare. And when they get that, they're like, man, these guys got their stuff together. They know what they're doing. Now you send it out. And then again, you wait about 7, 8, 10 days, you call them back. And again, now it's the call to close. Now you're asking for the commitment. Mr. Burke, hey, Brad Blazar, man, 5 Star Capital. How you been? Great. Hey, I wanted to call you because since we last spoke, some of that availability has obviously been spoken for. And so what we had available is whittled away, but I just wanted to make sure you got the offering memorandum, you got the PowerPoint presentation, everything else. Great. If you have access to it, I'd like to answer some questions and just bring your attention to some of the most important pages. And so now you're sitting there, he's got the deal in front of him, you've got the deal in front of you, and you're talking about the deal. And as you get towards the end of the conversation, you know, if you've been in sales, you know that there's kind of that positive tension, okay? You want to ask for the commitment. And here's the magic, folks. This works like a charm. I've learned this over 25 years through trial and error. And here's the magic that makes this whole thing work, okay? When you ask for the commitment, you always have to give an out. Most people don't get this, but you always have to give Mr. Burke the opportunity to say, I'm not interested, or get out. And so the magic is, Mr. Burke, you know, in this offering, how many units would you like to take? Would you like 1? Would you like 2, 3, or do you want none? And then you bite your tongue. And usually what I found, folks, is 85 to 90% of the time, after what seems like eternity, because the person's mind is going, they come back and they say, Brad, tell me again how much 2 units in your program cost. And that's when you sit back, folks, and you smile and you say, Mr. Burke, why don't you go get your checkbook? Welcome aboard. Folks, this 4-step process works. I know it works because I literally built a multi-million-dollar business doing it. And more importantly, I've taught dozens of other people how to do this too. And here's the best part about it. If each call is spaced about 7 to 10 days apart, right? There's only 4. How long did it take you to get someone to close and write you a check for 25, maybe 50, maybe $100,000, depending on how wealthy they are? It didn't take you months. It took you 1 month, maybe 5 weeks. Now, sometimes on that 4th call, you might get an objection. I've got to talk to my attorney about it, or I got to talk to my financial planner about it, or I got to talk to somebody about it. Great. That's fine. Why don't we set up a meeting and a date and a time where I can be available to answer any questions, because I'm sure that your financial planner is going to have questions. And as the expert, Mr. Burke, I want to make sure that I'm available. Can we look at our calendars, pick out a date tentatively, and then you can confirm with that person. You always want to be in control, folks. And that's the key. You always, always want to be in control. And a lot of times you've got to close and you've got to say certain things that we teach you in closing school and capital school, the 2 programs I have that I guarantee will literally close a sale all of the time. You see, when I was in business, I had a very wealthy, rich doctor based in Las Vegas that was a retired neurosurgeon. And he flew out in his private jet to meet me and my team. We went out to the field. We looked at the oil wells. He went back home. But for some reason, he would not close. He wouldn't write a check. And on the 6th, maybe it was a 7th call, I just developed the attitude, mindset. Some will, some won't. So what? Some are waiting. And one night, about 7:30, 8 o'clock, as we were talking, I said, Dr. Schnack, I'm going to be honest with you. It just takes 2 things to invest in an oil well. He said, what? I sat back in my chair and I said, it takes big balls and lots of money. Which of the 2 don't you have? I bit my tongue. And he said, tell me again how much 3 units in your program costs. I said, go get your checkbook. Welcome aboard. Folks, that's what you got to do. You got to talk to them as if you're just as affluent, as if you're just as successful, and as if you really don't need their money, even though I know you do. And it's hard, but we teach all that to you in capital school. So again, imagine, folks, getting access to the hundreds of thousands or millions you need to buy, build, or scale your business or fund that project. Imagine getting access to do deals like this, multifamily deals, commercial deals, self-storage deals, to acquire that first big property that literally can change your life. You know, if you buy a multifamily property that's priced $3 to $5 million with a couple of investors, and that property over 4 to 6 years double, and then you sell it, and because you were the general partner, you were the person that bought the deal together, you get 30% of the profit on the back end. It's a good chance that's going to be a very sizable high 6-figure or maybe even a 7-figure check. And when you come into that kind of money in one event, it's game changing. I mean, it's all over, folks. That's how I built a company. And that's how I've done real estate deals. And, you know, sometimes I walk away with 6 figures. And in some cases, I've walked away with some 7-figure checks. So, folks, let me just ask you, in the last 30, 40 minutes that we've been here, wouldn't you agree it's been time well spent? But here's the key. Here's the thing I want to tell you. I can't cover everything you need in an hour webinar here on High Performance Success Summit. I really can't even teach you everything I've developed in 25 years of doing this, raising $2 billion, even if we had all day. So I'm going to make a special offer here tonight so that you can get everything you need to know to literally raise capital. And if you act very fast, I'm going to give you a very, very special deal. And this deal is going to close actually here in a couple days. Old habits, folks, die hard. Some of you may have tried raising money before. Some of you may never have done it. But I always tell people, you've got to be willing to let go of your past. For you to see massive change in life, for you to really grow and see transformation, you've got to let go of the past. And that's so hard for people to understand, and it's so hard for people to do. I talk to people all the time and I say, if you looked around your house, you still have any 8-track tapes or any old cassettes? And they laugh and they say, yeah. And I said, what the hell you get those for? What do you get records for? Records are so old, you know, we don't listen to them anymore. Everything's digital, man. I listen to music on Spotify right here on my cell phone with my earbuds, right? Old habits, folks, die hard. So let your old habits die hard. Let the fears of not doing something big in life Go. Think big, because I know you can do this. And here's the key, folks. What I'm going to make available to you is the 4-step sales blueprint. What you're going to get tonight is the 4-step sales blueprint. Now, if I were to sell this retail, which I have, I've charged $1,497. Okay. You're also going to get the offering memorandum template. This is priceless. Most people that have never raised money don't know this. I'm going to tell you, if you went to a securities attorney, or if you went to a law firm and said, I'd like to raise money and I'd like to, put together an offering circular, can you do that for me? They'd say, sure. $25,000 retainer. And that's on the low end. Some of the bigger firms, folks, will charge you $50,000 to $75,000 to put together your offering circular. Okay, so you're going to get the template that they use so that you can create your own. And more importantly, we're going to show you exactly how to do it. You're also going to get my ebook. Okay, my ebook is called Crowdfunding 101, How to Raise Money on the Internet. There's lots of platforms, Connected Investors, Realty Mogul, right? Fundrise, all these different platforms. We're going to show you how to put an opportunity up there to raise money. Then I'm also going to give you how to access high net worth investor lists. I'm going to literally tell you who to call. It's the same guy I call, my business partners that'll sell you for a couple $100, 2,500 names, 5,000 names, phone numbers. This is your list of prospects. And then you're also going to get my ebook, 9 Truths to Raising Capital. Okay, folks, if this was sold retail, the total value would be just under $9,000. Okay, it'd be roughly $8,780. Now, let me tell you something. This has worked for lots of people. It's worked for the real estate investor trying to raise capital to fund their deals. It's worked for the business owner or for the entrepreneur that's looking to acquire a new business or maybe scale an existing business. It's worked for the entrepreneur or the person that wants to capitalize on a new idea or start a business. Okay. Now, I had 2 choices before Jason invited me to come on here today. I could have gone as cheap as possible with the intent to sell as many of these as possible. Okay. But if I did that, it would not have incentivized me to really stack the value. It would not have incentivized me to make sure that if you move forward and take action, that you're going to be successful. So the second option was it requires a little higher investment, but in exchange, a guy that's raised $2 billion and gets paid 5- and 6-figure retainers to consult with people around the world that want to raise money, I can devote more resources and guarantee that you'll be successful at doing this. So here's again what you're going to get. You're going to get the 4-step sales blueprint, which is kind of what I covered, okay? But we're going to go into it in depth, tear it apart, role play, make sure you really get it. That's a $1,497 value. You're also going to get the same template that big time law firms use so that you can literally bypass the law firms, do this yourself, and go out and raise money. That's a $3,500 value. You're going to get the ebook, how to use crowdfunding. You're going to get the names of various crowdfunding sites, how to put your offerings up on there, how to leverage that. That's a $1,297 value. You're going to learn how to access high net worth investor lists, $1,000 value. And then, of course, you're also going to get the 9 Truths to Raising Capital. So again, if I unbundle this, just under $9,000 in value, folks, okay? But I'm also going to throw in a bonus. You're going to get the secrets of working with big time money. You're going to get the secrets of working with family offices, okay? Big time firms that manage hundreds of millions of dollars, how to get in the door, how to pitch a deal. That's valued at $1,997, okay? Usually I only make that available for a very limited time to a small group of people. I'm also going to give you another bonus tonight. Some of you have goals of creating wealth, creating abundance. Like I said earlier, learning how to use other people's money to get filthy rich. I have worked for people that literally raise $250 million, $500 million a year. These are the big time real estate companies. And what they've learned to do is to create what we call syndications. They've learned how to go to broker dealers and get agreements with broker dealers where now you have hundreds of financial planners that are selling your deal for you. And folks, that's big time. That's how I've raised so much money. I've been the president and the executive vice president for multiple big time, multi-billion dollar real estate companies that do that. And I know the process. This is how you go from being a baby star to being a big star, using other people's money to fund and build your wealth. Okay. Now you're going to get everything I covered before, but you're also going to get bonus number 1, how to get in the door, how to work with advisory firms, how to work with family offices. You're also going to get the other bonus, getting into the big leagues. Okay. $2,500 value, retail value, $13,280. So let me ask you a question. If all this did for you, if you took action, was that you just raised $4 million over the next year using this very same process that I'm going to coach you on, I'm going to teach you, would it have been worth it? If all this ever did was allowed you to raise enough money to buy just 3 investment properties over the next 2 years, would it be worth it? If 2 investors, just 2, gave you $100,000 a month, okay? $100,000 a month, just 2 investors, $2,400,000 a year. Would it be worth it? You see, what's just one investor worth to you guys? If I could teach you how to get 1 investor to write you a check for $100,000, would that be a game changer? If I could teach you how to get 1 investor to write you a check for $500,000, would that be a game changer? How much would you pay to get 2 people giving you $50,000 a month? Okay, it's $100,000 a month. It's $1.2 million a year, so that you could buy a multifamily property. How much would you pay to get those kind of investors every 2 weeks? Every week. It's exactly what other people are doing, folks, using this exact same process, using these exact same tools. Now you can maybe understand why people are paying me 5-figure retainers. Plus, they're giving me equity in the deal. If it's a good deal, folks, I'm not stupid. I'm going to be asking for some equity. I want in on the deal. Okay? People are writing me checks for $12,500, $50,000. Plus, they're giving me 5 to 10% of their deals to learn how to do this. If you were to get 1 investor that invested $100,000 and all you made was just $5,000 one time, would it make sense to pay me $5,000 to learn how to do this? Because then every single investor past that first one would be pure profit in your pocket, in addition to all the additional business revenue or the project revenue that deal would generate. You see, you can see why it's a great deal at $5,000. But for the general public, when I do these types of webinars, I normally charge $3,795. But because you're still here, and Jason invited me to speak at the High Performance Success Summit, I'm making it available to you for $1,297 today. And the best part about this, folks, is we have payment options available. Okay. You can break it up into 2 months. You can break it up into 3 months. And that's the website you go to right there. https:// boom, go.bradblazar.com/join. And you will get all the information you need, and you'll see exactly what is included in what we call Capital School, which is a 2.5-month coaching and training program designed to teach people exactly how to raise money from high net worth accredited investors. But I'm going to make it even a sweeter deal. I'm going to give you bonus number 3. I'm going to give you a 30-minute strategy call with me to discuss your deal, to discuss raising money, to discuss your capital needs, discuss whatever you want. Okay. This is a $1,297 value, folks. And this is the 3rd bonus. So get started today. Okay. Change your life. Learn how to use other people's money to create abundance, to get wealthy. Okay. Break it up into the payments if you choose to do that, because we have payment options available. Go to the website on your screen. $12.97, folks. You can change your life. You can get investors to back your deals. Now you have two choices. Okay. You can do nothing. That's fine. Okay. Just do absolutely nothing. But here's the thing. Okay. If you do not move forward and take this opportunity, by the way, which is 100% risk-free because there's a guarantee behind it, nothing's going to change. Okay. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, trying to get the same results. Second option is you can pony up a small investment today, okay, compared to all the value that you're going to get in return, and just give it a shot. If it works, great, because you're off to the races raising money. And if not, all you got to do is just ask for your money back, folks, and you're going to get it because there is a money back guarantee. Here's the 30-day guarantee. If you sign up, and if you don't like it for any reason, and I don't care if it's on the 29th day, 59 minutes from now, I'm sorry, 23 hours and 59 minutes, just let me know. We're going to give your money back. So get started. Click the link, write it down, go there, and learn the secrets of using other people's money. Because the real question is it worth gambling a few minutes to check it out? Okay, which if it does half of what I've claimed this webinar will do for you, and your very first investor pays you the dividends, and then every other investor from that point forth, folks, is making you wealthy and making you rich. It's a game changer. So get started now. There's the link. Other methods and approaches to raising capital take 3 to 4 months or longer to see results. That's what I mentioned earlier, planning big events, going through the due diligence. With this, folks, you can literally get your first investor in about a month. The 4-step outline works. Potentially start raising a few $100,000 in the first 3 to 5 months. Get a 5x return on your investment. Okay. Now I'm going to share the secret of two people. You got the guy over here who's timid. Okay. Who's holding his hands together. That's wondering, should I do this? Is this for me? I don't know. Oh boy. $1,200. Man. 3 months later, folks, he's still there. Nothing's changed. His life hasn't changed at all. He has dreams and goals of doing something big, but it ain't going to change. You got the other dude, man. He's building a beast. That's the name of my other coaching program. He's taking action on something he wants in life because he realizes the importance of following through and committing on a goal. And he realizes the importance of a teacher and a mentor that's done something big. There aren't many people, folks, that have raised $2 billion and counting. Okay, I am the go-to guy for people like Roland Frazier, who has over 1 million followers, who has literally built, bought, and sold dozens of companies. And when people call Roland and say, man, I'm looking at buying a business and I need to raise $3 million, he said, well, don't call me, call Brad Blazar. And that's when people pay me $12,500, $15,000 retainers to learn the secrets, folks, that I'm making available to you for just $1,297 or for $477 if you want to break it up on the payment plan. Let me show you what to do. Let me coach you what to do over the course of Capital School so that you can actually get started on the road to funding your deals, to making something happen. There's the website. There's where you go. So what you're going to get, folks, again, just to summarize in closing, 4-step sales blueprint, okay? $1,497 value. The offering memorandum template. And if you can see my screen off on the side there, you'll see a cover that's got a 5. That's what we mean when we talk about an offering memorandum. It is an offering circular, okay? It is a legal document that we're going to show you how to put together. You also get crowdfunding 101, okay? That is basically my ebook. You're going to get to understand where to go for high net worth investor list. You're going to get the bonuses as well as 9 truths of raising capital. If all this stuff were unbundled, folks, it's roughly $14,500. But off on the side there, you can see little pictures of what you will get when you complete the coaching and training. You will have a full-blown investor package where you look badass. You'll have a PowerPoint. You'll have a 1-pager. You'll have an offering circular because that's what we teach you how to do. That's how we teach you to raise big time money from high net worth accredited investors. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm nothing special. I'm not great at creating social content, not good at Facebook, not great at Instagram. I got people that work for me that I pay good money to, and that's what they do. They're the experts. I'm really not that good at putting together high net worth investor events. That's why I don't do it. I don't want a bunch of plate lickers. Okay, I spent 25 years, folks, of trial and error, working with other people, discover what works. And I've raised hundreds of millions, a total of over $2 billion in my career that I'm willing to give to you, share you all my secrets just for a small investment. You can spend countless months. Many have spent years doing it the hard way. And all I'm going to say to that is why? Why would you do it the hard way when you can bridge the gap, get everything you need? So again, folks, here's the package I'm giving away today. Okay? The blueprint, the offering memorandum template, the crowdfunding 101 ebook, how to get these high net worth investor lists, how to get your prospects, where to go to do that, the 9 truths to raising capital, and then 3 big bonuses, folks. The secrets of working with family offices and RIAs, how to get into the big leagues, and also the 30-minute strategy call that you get with me. And I'm just going to tell you, if we need more than 30 minutes and we need to have a second call, even a third call, we're just going to throw that into the package for free because it's all about making you successful. Total value on all of this coaching, going through capital school, if it was all unbundled, $14,577, folks. And you come out the other end with a nice investor package, sell your deal, sell your company, sell whatever it is you're wanting to do. Folks, that's a real bargain. Now, get started today for just $12.97, folks. Sign up here, https:// I'll actually add the website you can go to there in the chat. Hope to see you there. Now, we're going to get started next week on Thursday. So time is of the essence. The enrollment window, if you want to take advantage of this, closes in about a day. So if you go to the website, you'll actually see the countdown clock, folks. It actually closes in about a day. So this is something that if you're interested in, you want to take advantage of now because we're having the first training actually on Thursday of this week. Okay, so that's actually when we're going to be getting started, is actually Thursday of this week, folks. And what you will actually get access to is basically a private Facebook group, which is where all the coaching actually is going to take place. So you'll have access to a private Facebook group. And what I tell people is that if you, for some reason, miss one of the coaching calls, don't worry, don't fret, because everything is recorded and everything actually gets added to that Facebook group so that you can go back in at your leisure. You can look at it. You can look at it multiple times. And the great thing about it is that you have access to that Facebook group forever. You have access to the list. I'm going to literally give you a list of family offices that you can call on to do your own deals. So with that, I want to open it up to anybody that has any questions about Capital School, which is starting next week, about the opportunity to learn from me how to raise money so that you can fund your real estate projects, you can fund your real estate investors. Because, folks, like I said earlier, it's a game changer. Okay? Don't think small. Think big. Most of you that are on here right now probably know the name Grant Cardone. Okay? How do you think Grant Cardone built $1.6 billion in apartments? It's not his money. He ain't flying around in that big Gulfstream, folks, because he's rich. It's because he's worked with all those investors. Every month he sits down and he sends checks to all of his investors. I want to see all of you get there someday. I've been there. I am there now. Okay? It's a game changer. So Jason, thank you so much for having me on. The other thing I'll also share with people before I leave is access to my podcast. Like I said earlier, folks, my podcast, Beast Nation, was recently rated by Yahoo Finance, Yahoo News, as well as Business Insider and the Digital Journal for being the second highest rated podcast to help people cope with COVID. If you're not familiar with it, we've interviewed some great business leaders like Brandon Dawson, who, of course, is Grant Cardone's personal business partner. I've interviewed Matthew Knowles, CEO of Music World Entertainment, of course, his daughter being Beyonce, married to Jay-Z. Interviewed people like Dennis Brown, Joel Brown, and so many other people. So, saturate your mind with some really, really good content. But with that, let's open it up for any questions. Anybody have any questions? Back over to you, and I'll stick around for a few minutes, Jason, just in case anybody does. You can just put your questions in the Q&A or in the chat. And again, like I said, folks, this opportunity to get all this value for $1,297 is for a very, very limited time.
Thank you, Brad. Awesome job today. You definitely want to reach out to Brad and take advantage of his offer and chance to work with Brad. Especially over the last 2 days, you've got a chance to meet some of the top speakers. Like today, you got a chance to meet Brad Blazar. You got a chance to meet Paul Finck, Mike Wolf. Yesterday you met Edna Keep. Wayne Wakefield briefly. You also got a chance to meet Darren Adams and Sophia. So definitely want to connect with these people and a high level. You're welcome, David. I really appreciate that. And so, yeah. So, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up and touch up real quick on networking with influencers. And what I'm saying by that really is you had a chance over 2 days to see some high-level people, meet some high-level people. So we're just going to go over this process. And really the process starts with this. You pay a genuine compliment. If you can't say something nice about someone, you shouldn't be networking them anyways. Number two, you ask what is the exciting projects they have going on in their sphere of influence. Number three, you listen to when they're talking so you can figure out how to add value. 4, you offer the add value and back that up by delivering it. 5, they'll ask about you because you created enough value in the conversation for them to care. 6, at the end of the conversation, you want to ask how to follow up with them. What's the best way to reach out to them? Some people will put you in touch with the executive or personal assistant. Some people will give you their phone number, email, social media. Everyone's a little bit different, has like 1 or 2 preferences of how to reach out to them. Number 7 actually is you want to then follow up, and that's a key. You establish all the great rapport in the world, but you don't follow up, nothing happens. Usually my recommendation is 24 to 48 hours. You want to follow up after you've connected, and that may be you, that might be a VA, it might be a personal executive assistant, or if it's you, but you want to have a system for that. So just to review: 1, pay your own compliment. 2, ask about the exciting projects. 3, listen to them and be thinking how you can add value. 4, off that value, you can't work. And network in an effective way. What you want to avoid doing is you want to avoid just throwing up on people when you go to them. A lot of people would start talking all about their projects and getting excited, but the other person or the successful person has had no value in that conversation. So you don't want to do that because you won't get anywhere, or you won't hear back from them. The business card will be gone. So anyways, that's a little bit about networking influencers. And I just want to make some quick announcements. November 14th and 15th will be our next High Performance Summit virtual summit event. Will be taking place. We'll be announcing that in the coming week and all the details. I just want to thank everyone for attending the day this weekend's High Performance Summit. I'm going to end